Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We are live from the Antonio Cromartie studio in part with Huggies, all presented by FanDuel. Monster show here today. How you doing, Sam?
Doing good. How about you, Steve?
Doing great. Keep it quick. So we got Dean Blandino on the line. We'll get to him in just 12 seconds here because we have Monster Show. We got Shouty Shows. We're going to be reviewing last year's draft class.
Yep.
We're going to be, what else are we doing? We got tons of stuff here. We got the general Wednesday update, a huge trade in the guy our age was traded yesterday.
Wow.
So we'll break it all down. But first, let's talk NFL rules and ask some questions about some penalties. Dean Blandino.
Hard-hitting questions.
Fox Sports NFL rules analyst. Dean's going to break it all down with us, only here exclusively on Check the Mic. How you doing, Dean? Welcome back.
I'm doing good. Good to see you guys.
How many media hits are you doing during the week right now?
Depends on the week. A couple of weeks ago, if you remember, I my inner voice got the better of me, and I made some comments about the tush push. That was a very busy week. That was a very, very, very busy week.
We already have people in the chat already begging.
Oh, the Philly people are. I am public enemy number one. It's awesome.
Our people are actually begging, do not discuss the tush push. So
I know. If I never talk about it again, it'll be too soon.
We definitely have a question about punching people in the face on the peanut punch. Yeah. But before we get to that, Monday Night Football, I think the one that was most talked about, despite the Chiefs having 3x the number of penalties as the Jags, the no call on the pass interference that led to a Chiefs interception. What did you see on that play? Was that the right call?
Yeah, look, it's when you watch it on tape, it's pass interference based on the rule, right? The defender, you can't make contact before the ball arrives, and the language in the book talks about significantly hinders, and he just kind of takes the receiver out. But I think live, it's a tough play because it's such a bang play, and you watch those plays where the receiver's running the route. Who's initiating the contact? Is it the receiver? Like we saw the pick play right earlier in the game at the goal line. So you see those receivers sometimes will run that route to try to create some contact with the defender. Was the defender playing the ball? Because he has a right to playing to pass the football just the same as the receiver does. So it's such a bang play. So I understand, and you've got multiple officials looking at that from different perspectives. So I kind of understand. I can see why the flag wasn't thrown. But when you watch it on tape, it's a foul. It's just, it's one of those where the game is fast, and you would hope that the officials would get the flag down on that one, but they missed it.
The thing that confused me about it is within 5 yards from the line of scrimmage, you can chuck a receiver, right? And if you do that before the ball's in the air, isn't that legal contact?
That's legal, yeah. And that's another hard part about these plays. I mean, it's you can jam the receiver within 5 yards before the pass is thrown.
Right.
But
so
now
what made this one tough is that I think the contact starts before the ball's in the air, but it kind of lasts through the point where the ball is in the air. So because the rules, I went looking at the rule book, and it's ambiguous on this, right?
Yeah.
If the contact continues through the point where the ball's in the air, does that become pass interference?
It can, and that's the judgment call that the official has to make. Okay, right. I've got legal contact within 5. Now the ball's in the air. Now I have to decide. Okay, is that contact? Does it raise to the level of pass interference? And when you watch, it's all bang. It all happens so quickly. So you have to process all of that in the moment. And you always tell the official, if you're not 100% sure, don't throw the flag. And so that's why I understand in that in real time why the flag wasn't thrown. And that's just one of those deals where it happens fast. There's a lot to process, and you want to be 100% sure before you put a flag down.
But by the way, the pick play where Kansas City did score their touchdown, there was some argument on the broadcast. Was that a yard? Was that a yard and a half?
Yeah.
What did you see on that play?
Yeah, I thought it was. You don't want to be too technical on those. You can run a legal pick play, which is exactly what Kansas City was doing. Other teams do it. They know if it's within a yard of the line of scrimmage. A lot of times, at the goal line, it's man coverage, so the picks you have a better opportunity to pick those defenders. I thought the contact might have been just beyond a yard, but again, you want it to be clear. You want it to be obvious to throw a flag there. So if it's close, then the officials are gonna let it go. But the Chiefs know, and every team knows it's within a yards, and that's what they're trying to run that pick within, legally. And when it goes more than a yard, that's when you put the flag down.
Now we get to punching people in the face.
Yes. Why is that legal?
This is our question, right? We all saw a play, another high-profile game. We got late in the game. It looks like the game's completely going to change. And then out of nowhere, Alfred Collins comes from the right with a haymaker, punches the ball loose, fumble, game swings. But before the fumble, the fist clocked the guy right in the head. And there's just been a trend now where if you punch a guy in the face just, having an argument, you get ejected. It's a penalty. It's a big foul. If you touch the quarterback in the face, incidentally, on the way to sacking him, it's the flags everywhere. You got to protect the quarterback. But if it's on a running back or a wide receiver, it seems to be open season where we just assume, he was probably going for the football. It's fine. How come you're allowed to just hoof a guy in the head now?
And that's what your last point is exactly what it is. We see this peanut punch so much now, and it's become such a big part of what the defenses do. Right? We don't tackle anymore. We try to knock the football out, and sometimes when it works, it's like in that instance, it's an incredible, momentum change. It's such a big play in the game, and again, because they just assume that the player's going for the ball, and most of the time they do hit the ball or part of the body. That one was a right cross right to the chin, and if the official sees that, it's a foul. They should call it. You can't strike an opponent, with a closed fist or even an open hand in a striking manner, which that was. But with this punch, this play, in real time, it's hard to differentiate between the body and the football. So they just assume they're punching at the football, and it's going to have to be blatant to call it. That looked pretty blatant to me. But again, this is a part of the game that the next time it's called is going to be the first time. And I think that's where we're at right now.
That's the thing, because there have been some pretty blatant ones that have gone through before. But you're saying that you think that they're missing them, as opposed to at the moment we're defaulting to the assumption that they're going for the ball.
I think they're defaulting to they're punching at the football, and it's hard to see, and you don't read in intent, but when two guys are drawn and somebody takes a shot at somebody versus trying to make a football play. But again, by rule, you can't punch somebody in the head. So I think that's where you have to kind of figure out, okay, where do we draw this line?
Yeah, and I don't think any of these are deliberately, punching a guy in the head. Just
of course.
But when it comes to quarterbacks, like, we don't give that same benefit of the doubt. Like, I don't think any of these guys sacking the quarterback and hitting him in the head are trying to hit him in the head as much as,
of course not.
He's going up to block a ball, hand comes down, clips the side of the helmet. But as soon as you see clip to the helmet, the flag comes out. Doesn't happen with other positions.
No, and the quarterback is, and look, the reality is the quarterback is a different deal, right? We protect the quarterbacks. Personally, I think we've gone too far. You watch the Saints Giants game, and the call in that game.
That was where he's lying on top of him.
That's the foul. I said this before. That's the one my brother calls me. He goes, "Oh, they're calling the hit him too hard foul again." So it's just but we overprotect the quarterbacks. I get it. It's a premium position. They are in a defenseless posture a lot of the time. And the running back, the theory is the running back has more opportunity to protect himself. They can stiff arm. They can do other things. So I think this is one we're going to live with. And again, I don't anticipate the league saying, "Hey, we're gonna start calling this unnecessary roughness," because most of the time they're just trying to hit the ball.
I asked you last year about intentional grounding. I feel like that always drives me nuts every Sunday, and I felt like the league has moved more toward receiver in the area to, are you actually trying to complete it? The two calls that stood out to me the last couple of weeks, Russell Wilson on Sunday Night Football against the Chiefs. I don't know if you remember it, but it was in the red zone. Every receiver was at the front part of the goal line, and he threw it into the stands.
He just airmailed it,
But I mean, I've seen Joe Flacco miss passes like that before. So, catching strays. Joe over here in Cincinnati down the street. So that was intentional ground. I knew he was trying to throw it away, but theoretically he's throwing it over the receiver's head who's in front of him. And then the Bo Nix no call. The broadcast missed the overturn, but Bo Nix, I thought that was a clear legal throwaway. There was a receiver in the area. But it does feel like you're defaulting more toward, are you trying to complete the pass? Like, what's the spirit of the rule, and where do you think the league's landing on it right now?
Yeah, I think the way the rule is written and the way it's being officiated, and this isn't new. This has been for a while. That's kind of been the philosophy is because grounding is again, we're protecting the quarterback. We're going to allow the quarterback to get rid of the football. The rule says a reasonable opportunity, reasonable chance to complete the pass. Well, neither one of those were really reasonable, but we always do default to, if you can put a receiver in the area, put a receiver in the area. Because what you don't want is the quarterback holding on to it too long and then they take unnecessary hits. So, with Russell... With Russell Wilson, with that play, when you have players, we always said that if you throw it over the head of a receiver in the end zone, as long as that receiver, if it's over their head, not putting it into the 30th row of the stands, you're going to let them do that. Or if you have a receiver working back toward the football, and the quarterback throws it in that direction and it bounces and they kind of are moving toward each other, you're going to let them get away with that. So I thought the Wilson one was kind of pushing that philosophy, but I agree with you that in Philly on Sunday that was a legal throwaway where the receiver was in the area.
I don't know whether this is the way these conversations ever go, but if you're sort of like, how do we maximally protect the quarterback whilst minimally screwing up the game? It feels like allowing the most generous interpretation of intentional grounding and throwaways is a way better way than flagging any incidental contact on the quarterback whatsoever. Like, that protects him just as well, and you don't have a flag every 3 seconds.
Yeah, no question. And that's always been the philosophy is lean toward letting the quarterback ground it. You talk about, in the pocket versus outside the pocket. Once they get outside the pocket, they just need to get it to the line of scrimmage. And you're always going to lean when it's close that the quarterback's outside the pocket. So that's definitely a philosophy. I don't know if I can't imagine the league's going to back off in terms of how they protect the quarterbacks. It just, you look at, like you said, you guys mentioned Cincinnati and Joe Flacco. Why is Joe Flacco in Cincinnati, right? Because Joe Burrow's out. We don't want Joe Burrow out. We don't want Josh Allen out. We don't want Mahomes out. So it's kind of that delicate balance of protecting that position because it's so important to the game, but also you got to let the defense play defense too. So that's the part of it that I struggle with a little bit.
While we're here, Sam, you mentioned it feels like we're not getting as many late hits right out of bounds this year. I don't know. Are we seeing anything on that? It does feel like the defense, the number of times that I'm holding my breath, waiting for a flag on the bang play, it's not happening this year. Well, are you seeing
remember that Joseph Asai play in the AFC Championship game?
I hated that.
I've seen Joseph Asai make that play this year and not be flagged for it, let alone other people making the Joseph Asai play.
I feel like there's better judgment on those plays right now.
I think there is better judgment. I think that's something replay could get involved in if they do drop the flag and the runner's clearly in bounds. And this has been something we've talked about when I was back at the league, and I know they've emphasized this for the quarterbacks especially. If you want the protection of the sideline, get out of bounds, right? If you tiptoe up the sideline and then you try to duck out of bounds at the last second, you get hit, that's not a foul, right? You got to get out of bounds, get into the white or angle yourself out of bounds to where it's clear that you're not trying to gain yardage and kind of game it a little bit. So I think the ball carriers are doing a better job. The officials are doing a better job. The defensive players are doing a better job. And I would agree, we're not seeing those types of hits as much anymore.
The last thing I wanted to talk about, a couple of weeks ago, Saquon Barkley got fined $47,000 or whatever it is for the classic lead with the crown of your helmet thing. Running backs in particular, but I get wide receiver, ball carriers generally. Do you think it's possible to brace for contact from a certain angle and not lower the crown of your helmet? Like, if you come down with your shoulder, is your helmet not inevitably coming down? And at that point, where the contact takes place, whether it's your shoulder, the side of your helmet, the top of your helmet, is kind of down to where the defender is more than the running back. Like, he's making exactly the same instinctive brace for contact maneuver, and then it's just a case of whether the physics works in his favor or not.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think that's part of the issue with this rule, this use of helmet rule. I get it from a health and safety perspective, and we're trying to get the those whether it's head to head shots or using the helmet and the head to make contact, trying to get that out of the game because of the safety element. And but like you said, and that's why it's the officials don't throw this flag very often,
Yes.
especially on running backs, because the running back just in the position and where they're in, you are in more of a protective mode, right? You're not as a running back, and there have been exceptions, but the running back is instinctively trying to get low, trying to get small, trying to protect the football, trying to protect themselves versus actually delivering a blow. And I think that's where this rule becomes difficult, especially on the running back and even the defenders, right? I'm the runner's getting low. I'm breaking down, trying to make a tackle. If I stand straight up, I'm going to get run over. So I've got to get low. And when I break down, the head is gonna lower. And a lot of times it's just a collision that happens because it's football versus I'm trying to use my helmet to initiate contact to hurt this guy. So I think that's part of the issue.
I think it's so hard. I mean, rugby has dealt with this as well, and they did it sort of almost a zero tolerance way, but they sort of put the onus entirely on one side, right? It's like the tackler is responsible for where this head contact takes place. And I think they rolled back a little bit recently, but there was a time where guys were getting red cards and sent off when they come in for a tackle, the ball carrier like jukes into the head contact. So he goes from like one shoulder, tries to sidestep him, they go face to face, and the guy that was tackling that got run into gets the red card because that was the way they decided, like, we can only do this one way and say, look, it's just zero tolerance. It's 100% on the tackler to figure this out. But the bottom line being, there's no clean way of doing this. Like, you're going to get incidental head contact because it's a violent game played by super athletes on both sides of the ball, and none of these people are, cyborgs who can change like at the last possible second. And it seems whatever you do is unfair to somebody.
Of course, and that's the thing. I think, and the NFL does take a zero tolerance policy when it comes to defensive players hitting players that are in a defenseless posture, right? The receivers, though, it doesn't matter if the receiver goes up to catch the pass and your aiming point as a safety is the middle of the chest. And now because gravity brings that receiver back to the ground, and now I was aiming at the chest, but now I hit him in the head, that's on you. And because it is difficult to incorporate all those different factors from an officiating perspective, it's zero tolerance in that instance because the league will live with the collateral damage of maybe, okay, it's tough on the defense, but for overall health and safety, they're gonna continue down that path.
Dean, 5 weeks into the season, any trends standing out, or what are you seeing around the league?
Well, I look, you look at the kickoff return, and the kickoff return is back. I mean, that was the whole point last year. They wanted to do 1 year, see how it went. They had the touchback at the 30. Kick returns went up, not drastically, right? It went from 22%, which was an all-time low in 23, to 33% in 24, which was better, but still not where they wanted to be. The injury data was great. It was positive. We got more returns. Field position was better. Scoring was up. So now they changed the touchback to the 35. If you kick it through the end zone, now we're seeing close to 80% of kicks returned. Field position's great. Scoring's up. So that's a big change. I mean, we haven't seen numbers like that, in terms of 78, 79, 80% kicks returned since early 2000s. So that's a positive. I think we're seeing penalties in general are up across the board, not drastically, but they're up. Illegal contact is one that jumps out. We talked about that earlier, where you can chuck the receiver up until 5 yards. We're seeing more of that. That's not a bad thing. I mean, because if officials are calling that, then defensive players know, okay, they're going to have to use their feet versus their hands, and it gives the receivers more ability to run their routes. Again, helps the passing game, and the reality is, you want a healthy passing game. You want points because that's what people want to see for the most part.
JJ in our chat reminded me that we need to get your take on something I floated the other show. Do you have a philosophical take on the use of like super slow-mo instant replays where it feels to me that there are some plays that it's great for, right? Like black and white issues. Did his toe touch inbounds before he went out of bounds? This is something we can slow it down frame by frame, 4K. That's great. There are other plays, though, where it feels like it basically changes your perception of what actually happened on the play. Like it alters physics, where if you run at full speed, he just caught the ball. If you slow it down and go super slow-mo, it's like, look, it's moving. Does he have control? Suddenly it's not a catch. Do you think that we've gone too far with the use of like super slow-mo, frame by frame it? Let's start really getting granular on what happened here.
Yeah, I do. And I think one of the things, and we teach replay officials, you want to run the video based on the play. So like you said, if I'm looking to see if the foot touched the sideline, then super slow-mo is great. I can go frame by frame. Or if the ball broke the plane of the goal line, I can freeze it and we can see the nose of the ball breaking the plane. But when I'm looking at a catch no catch play and I want to see does the ball come loose, if I go frame by frame, he's got control. I mean, I can freeze it and he's got control where that ball could be loose. So I think depending on the play, you have to run the video and look at the video at full speed or slow motion or pretty much anywhere in between based on what you're looking for. And I do think, I think about basketball and forever, right? If I have the ball and you knock the ball out of my hands, that's out on you. And it's always been out on you. And now we look at the replay and you hit the ball, but then my pinky just happened to touch the ball last, and now we're changing that.
No,
I don't ever want to get there in football. There have been plays where you watch it live. That's why pass interference review is so tough, because live, bang bang, it all happens at the same time. It's not a foul. Then you slow it down. You go, oh, he was like 3 frames early. Is that what we want? And I don't think that's what we want.
And like offsides in soccer with VAR, like it's a rule that's simply not designed to handle that kind of precision. It was never intended to, but all of a sudden we now have the ability to take it down to a centimeter, and guys are being ruled offside because like a toe is ahead of, like, he can be functionally behind the other player, but one toe is ahead. That's it. Goal doesn't count.
Exactly. And that it was never meant for that. That's like the play clock in football, right? Do we want to get that technical on the play clock and take back big plays and say that the split second it hits 0? Maybe we get there, but I don't know if that's what we want.
Are we, when a receiver is not bobbling the ball, but like the ball's moving in his possession, is that considered possession? Because that's the one I think that shows up in super slow-mo.
Exactly.
Like, the ball moved, but like he's just rotating it. Is that supposed to be considered possession when the ball's rotating?
Yeah, it should be, and we talk about that a lot. And the rule book talks about slight movement is not loss of control, and you've got to be able to differentiate between a ball that is actually loose to a receiver who is moving the ball within their control. I'm just repositioning my hands.
Right.
I'm just taking it from here to here, and we're always teaching that. Like, do not be overly technical on that, because the ball it's going to move, but it's moving within his control. He is repositioning the football, doing whatever the receiver's doing with it, versus the ball actually, bobbling it, juggling it, whatever it may be.
That's the best example, I think, of like the slow-mo replays invent that. Like if you watch these plays live, it's like it never even occurs to people that he didn't just catch the ball cleanly. And then when you run it super slow-mo zoomed in, it's like, look, it's moving all these times. And but like it's allowed to move. I mean, nobody, very rarely does somebody 100% purely catches clean, tucks it, like the whole thing is 100% stuck to the guy's hand and there's no, extraneous movement whatsoever. That doesn't mean he didn't catch it just because you can see ball movement.
No question. And that part of replay, right? Catch no catch was never meant for replay, because the rule, right? The rule used to be having the ball long enough to perform an act common to the game. Well, that's kind of subjective, right? It's not. And when you get into replay, you want that to be objective, to the point where the NFL actually changed the rule to make it a replay rule, right? If you get both feet and then you get another step down, they wanted to make it more black and white. The problem with that, though, is that the officials on the field, those rules are written for the on-field officials to make decisions in real time. They don't have slow motion. They've got to officiate on field. They got to officiate on what they're seeing. And you could almost make it less consistent because a very, very small number of plays go to actual replay review, where the overwhelming majority of catch no catch plays don't go to review. And you want to make sure the officials have a rule that they could officiate consistently.
Love it, Dean. It's good to have every few weeks to just air our grievances. Here's what we're seeing. Please defend it all. Tell us what we're seeing, Dean. So always appreciate it. Fox Sports rules analyst Dean Blandino.
You got it, guys. Take care.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dean.
I almost jumped in and asked about the automatic strike zone for baseball. If he's got a take on that, because it's another one I think that changes. It changes the entire game. You've got this floating strike zone now, and pitches that were strikes for 120 years are now balls, and vice versa. It changes everything. But there's some people that disagree with you and think if we have slow motion replay, we should just get everything right. Just have everything.
But I don't think you can.
Everything right.
But that's the problem with
by the letter of the law and by the frame.
Yeah.
Just get it right.
So the problem,
rather than relying on imperfect officiating.
I generally agree with that as a principle. Like I don't like this idea because some people push back and they're like, well, mistakes are part of the fun, right? Everyone loves talking about officiating mistakes after the fact. Like it's a feature, not a bug. I don't agree with that. So I do think you should be trying to get the maximum number of calls correct that you can. What I think the problem is that when you do that by using instant replay, super slow-mo, like zoomed in stuff, all the modern tech, is that you run into specific rules that simply were never designed to deal with that level of technology. I think VAR, offside, and soccer is a great example, right? Where theoretically you're not allowed to be beyond the last defender. Now, when that was sort of invented as a rule, the idea is, you can't be further ahead than the last guy, right? But what is further ahead? Is that, the center mass? Is that most of you? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right.
When you're just eyeballing it, it's easy. It's like, well, he's ahead. I can see that. When you have the technology to isolate every single part of the guy's body, and now is one toe, most of you is actually behind the guy, but one toe is further ahead. Is that further ahead? Well, now it is, technically. When the rule was invented, that would never have been offside. It was ridiculous. You would even specify it. But when you're drawing it in black and white, you end up where the NFL was with the catch rule, right? And the Calvin Johnson stuff, the stuff that Dean was just talking about, where in order to try and get it black and white so that you can make it so that it functions within instant replay, you have to make it so absurd that ridiculous things end up getting called, right? Or you go back and leave it as a judgment call, but then you're in the world we are now with the juggling catch stuff where it's like it's moving. I think he's lost control. It's like, but you wouldn't if we weren't looking at instant replay. So I think the problem is this technology, as great as it is, again, it changes your perception of what's happening because you go too granular. I think that's the problem, is that these rules were simply never designed with this level of tech in mind, and I don't know that there's a solution to fix them.
All right, we've got Shouty Shows coming up, but first, got to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel, getting you ready for the NFL season with an offer you don't want to miss. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet $5, and if it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You could build parlays, bet the player props, ride the live lines. Whatever your style, FanDuel has you covered. The NFL season is here. We're in week 6. The only question is, are you ready to play? You go to FanDuel.com/CTM. That's FanDuel.com/CTM. Download the FanDuel app and get started today. Must be 21 plus, present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 877-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Today we do have a Thursday night football prop bet here. Philadelphia Eagles at the New York Giants. We're talking Jaxson Dart.
Oh.
And his over-under for passing yards. I'm interested in the rushing yard prop, but passing yards, 177.5 for Jaxson Dart, who has not
high.
Right, it's not high, and he's certainly done more damage with his legs than with his arms so far.
Yes. going up against an Eagles defense that's, Vic Fangio, pretty damn good. A lot of good players within that defense. Yeah, passing yards.
One more thing to add here. Obviously, Malik Neighbors is out.
Yep.
I think it's Darius Slayton's out. I mean, they're down deep into the depth chart at receiver right now.
Which was not that strong to begin with outside of Malik Neighbors. I agree with you. I mean, I think he's going to do the majority of his damage on the ground with his legs. Don't love the passing effectiveness. However, it's a pretty low number.
It's very low.
I'm going to go over because people think we've been too mean to Jaxson Dart. So I'm just going to why would I not be optimistic for the young lad?
I'm going to say, 1 week removed from, and obviously we'll break this game down in detail tomorrow. 1 week removed from dismissing the underdog with all of their injuries, the Niners, and they go out there and upset the Rams. But I'm going to do it again. I'll say under. I think they're going to struggle to throw the ball against the Eagles defense, even from a game flow perspective. That would be the one thing that makes me go the other way, is the game flow perspective. If I think the Eagles are going to win, Dart throwing up the ball a little bit more.
However, Giants defense, Eagles offense keeps sputtering. It might not get out of control anytime.
No, I know. The Eagles aren't dominating anyone right now, and if they do, it's only for a half, and they're letting them back into the game. So you're going over. I'll go under for Jaxson Dart, 177.5. Again, go to FanDuel.com/CTM to play and join us. All right. Shouty Show time. Let's do it.
Let's go.
I've thought about it very deeply.
I liked how he started it with, I've thought about this long and hard.
I trust the backup quarterback more than I do Dak.
This is why Skip Bayless is the master of the Shouty Show segment.
I can't do it anymore. It is year 6.
It's just a never-ending arms race of idiocy between loud, obnoxious people. We are the antidote to that.
One of my favorite times.
Before we go too deep into this, I know there's not a huge amount of crossover between our listenership and Shouty Show listenership. There is, however, some, and people will come across clips. Send us in submissions for the Shouty Shows. If you've seen whatever the most outlandish thing on the Shouty Show you've seen in a given week before Wednesday, email us in to checkthemic@the33rdteam.com and send us submissions.
Can we do Shouty tweets too? Like when you responded to last week, Ryan Clark basically saying, "Hey,
I think
Mac Jones would have won a Super Bowl."
I think we need the audio.
The audio's better.
Yeah. But the audio can be, a lot of these shows, send their audio out in clip form on tweets.
True. That's true. So, keep an eye out.
So the tweet, yes, but only if it's a clip from a Shouty Show, not if it's just,
check the mic at the33rdteam.com. Email it. And, we just get more people feeding into the Shouty Show segment.
Yeah. All right. We're not asking you to suffer through Shouty Shows, but if you happen to stumble across a particularly, obnoxious Shouty Show take, email it into us.
All right, let's start. Shouty Show clip number 1.
Drake May, now with a legitimate head coach, quickly becoming a franchise star. Vrabel is the opposite of Mike McDaniel in Miami. He is all function and no flash. His scheme is toughness. And that is what Vrabel's all about. Same with Drake May. We said when Drake May came out of college, he's Justin Herbert. He just is not quite polished enough. And he's a young quarterback. It's not about the bad throws. It's about, can you make the big boy throws? And Drake May last night made about 4 of them. This is what a playoff team looks like.
There was a lot in that.
Big boy throws, not big time throws, big boy throws.
He fit a lot into that, sequence. I love that line is great, that his scheme is toughness.
I thought
that needs to be on a wall somewhere.
The instant comparison from Vrabel and Mike McDaniel.
The opposite of Mike McDaniel. I think he fit a lot into that. Opposite of Mike McDaniel. That's a pretty good, spicy line. His scheme is toughness. That could be on the wall over there.
My scheme is toughness. Let's get that as a
He's just
motivational.
It's about the big boy throws. There were 5 pretty spicy lines. It's just within that one take.
That was really good. Do you think Vrabel rolls into the interview with the Crafts? What's your offensive system? You're going to run a little West Coast? Yeah. Are you Earhart Perkins? What are you exactly? Just toughness. Toughness. Bring toughness to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, if we were ranking,
in
cage
the interview
match participants, it's him and Dan Campbell. Mike McDaniel's 32.
Yeah.
How could you beat that?
Is he 32?
Who has less of a chance in a head coach cage match?
If Mike McDaniel can't beat the piss out of geriatric Pete Carroll, what are we even doing here?
Are you kidding me? Pete Carroll.
He's an old man.
He probably knows.
Mike McDaniel was an actual football player.
I guaranteed
at
Pete Carroll
Yale or whatever
knows
it was.
some kind of.
You think he's like a jiu-jitsu master?
Yes, absolutely.
Like a seventh Dan? Like
Yeah.
it's
He's high energy.
It's Hickson, Gracie, and Pete Carroll. That's what you're telling me?
He has some secret skill that would crush Mike McDaniel, as would Mike Vrabel.
Who's the next most feeble head coach?
It used to be like Brandon Staley, Kellen Moore.
Yeah, Kellen. Mike McDaniel against Kellen Moore. I'm good. Mike would get he would rip the arm off his like fancy gold glasses and stab him in the neck with it. He would end Kellen Moore.
What if it was
Kellen Moore's way too nice to survive in a cage match, in addition to being 135 pounds.
What if it was head coaches and their coordinators, and you had Kellen Moore and Brandon Staley rolling up to
That's a rough duo.
a fight?
That's a rough duo.
Anyway, well constructed argument from.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, look, the opposite of Mike McDaniel thing's a little harsh, but I think as with all these things, it's not the most accurate thing I've heard in the world, but there's some good points in there. I think the idea that Vrabel's scheme is toughness, I think that undersells what Vrabel brings to the table. It's like Dan Campbell became a meme and a caricature based off the kneecap biting thing, and people undersell the good, smart stuff that Dan Campbell brings to the table. I think the same thing is true with Vrabel. Like, he's more than just a meathead who is tough, right?
But like Campbell was a play caller for a minute, right?
Yeah.
But that wasn't why he got hired.
No, agreed.
Like Ben Johnson was hired because he's a play caller.
But you
McDaniel
can't just say like all he's bringing to the table is toughness. Like, Vrabel is just instilling a toughness in the Patriots, and that's why they're winning. Like, he's also bringing other stuff to the table. The Drake May thing is intriguing. Herbert is an obvious comp for him because of the size. They're more athletic than you give him credit for. The physical tools are pretty special. I disagree with them a little bit in terms of it's not about the mistakes. Yeah, young quarterbacks are going to make mistakes, but how many you make and are you always going to make them is a pretty important variable in how good he's going to be going forward. I do agree with him, though, that it's also about the big boy throws, and he did make a bunch of those in this game. So, yeah, there's a lot in that take.
He just copied. I think PFF had 4 big-time throws on first run. I saw that number going around. He just took my name, Big-Time Throws, which is a great name, and renamed it Big Boy Throws for his argument here.
Yeah.
Despite what the Ringer and Greg said, trying to bully me.
People haven't heard that. You keep referencing it as if the rest of the world is in on this thing.
Well, let's pull it up. All right, I'll address it head on. It's Wednesday. We can do whatever we want.
The Ringer Fantasy Show, which is, what's his name? Danny and Craig.
I'm going to text it to the group right now so that we can get it up on the show later today.
They went to Dublin the way we did. They went to Dublin, and in a pub with Greg Rosenthal, they were talking.
Let the people decide how mean this is.
It came up in conversation. You know, they were referencing somebody's big-time throws, and they simply said, that's the name that a child comes up with. You know, it's a ridiculous sounding statistic, and he can't believe that this is a thing that's become part of everyday parlance in the football commentariat. And then Greg, I think it was Greg, said, you know, it is kind of funny that basically Steve Palazzolo's child is responsible for one of the big statistics out there, big time throws.
If we can get it up, we'll do it after Shouty Shows. If we can get it, I'll address it head on. I'll address the controversy.
Controversy.
All right,
There's no controversy. You're just upset that people have rightly called you out for your ridiculous name.
They left the country, tried to bully me from afar, and they're going to be upset when we run into each other on the circuit this offseason.
In the cage match world, you know, could you take all 4 of them?
Oh, yeah.
Like, did you ever see Eddie Hall had an MMA fight against 2? I don't think they were technically little people, but they were very little people, if you get me. There's whatever that distinction is. I think they were the north end of it. But Eddie Hall, won a 2-on-1 fight. As Eddie Hall, the strong man that's
my uncle
300, 400 and something pounds.
He'd go, 3 people.
Could you take all 4 of them? I mean, they're all a lot smaller than you, Greg in particular.
Danny Kelly, he's a little bigger, but.
He's not big.
Yeah, I could take all of them.
Yeah. I'd pay to see that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see him at the Combine. All right, let's go to the second Shouty Show.
Okay.
You can't throw a coach out in his first year. But you know what? The way things are going,
can't do it.
Glenn's going to make it tempting. We're starting to reference Kotite. Do you realize, does Aaron Glenn realize what we are bumping into, what we are approaching when you start to bring up Kotite? and the co-tight Jets, that's how bad this has become.
Mike,
They're actually
Still
not
going.
worth any more words. They just stink to high heavens.
That was a lengthy pause in the middle. I thought
It
he
was.
was done.
Yeah.
He was just
We said it's not even worth words.
Taking a
'cause he
drink?
stumbled on his words, so they're not even
Yeah.
worth it. We're 5 weeks in. Jets are the only winless team.
Yeah. I do. This is the sort of unfortunate nature of the New York media market where, I mean, obviously the Jets have disappointed this season, right? By anybody's standards. You and I both thought they would be sort of feisty this year. And they tend to start games that way. There's a lot of games where you're like, oh, look, the Jets have shown up today, and then it falls apart. And it's like, a lot of people keep saying things like, I think Aaron Glenn's doing a good job or is moving in the right direction or is sort of saying the right things or instilling the right values. But it's the New York media market, and you go 0-5, and people are like all over you immediately. It's like, how long does he have like this? It's kind of.
It is interesting because I brought up the point. I feel like I used Aaron Glenn's name more than anyone else this offseason with the new coaches. Like, what if he's just not cut out to be a head coach or whatever? I don't know why I just always went that way. I mean, it's true for anyone.
Yeah.
Could have been Ben Johnson, could have been any of them. My biggest concern with the Jets, I would say, is more the procedural stuff. And
That's a problem.
Like when we said they should have been feisty, I'm painting this picture of Fields running the ball, them being really run heavy, and all of a sudden the games are shortened.
And they have had game, but again,
Yeah.
they've had like the Miami game started like that, and then it kind of fell apart.
And if you take care of the procedural stuff and you don't have a lot of penalties, and then you're playing man coverage, which is volatiles, right? So I was leaning into the volatility of
And
their style of play.
prone to penalties.
And now everything's going the other way.
How much do you think, so if they were a clean penalty team, right, if they were averaging one of the lowest penalty counts in the NFL, how much do you think that on its own would change perception?
Oh, I think that could be an entire win.
Not win, but how much do you think that would change perception of Glenn? Like if you,
Oh,
because that's
it would,
one of
yeah.
the things that people use to beat a head coach with, right?
I hate the
Look, this is
penalty.
ill-discipline. This is a coaching
I
thing.
hate that because there's different types of penalties, right? The 6 pre-snap penalties or whatever that they had on Monday Night Football against the Dolphins, that's the stuff that is discipline and should be controlled and should be better. If you have like pass interference penalties, that's just bad coverage. Like there's no difference between, grabbing a receiver 25 yards down the field for a penalty versus giving up a 25-yard catch. So that's why I don't like not all penalties are the same. Some are just bad. You're just playing football poorly. You're holding, you have defensive pass interference. That's the same thing as getting beaten by a pass rusher or getting beaten by a receiver, and then you just have bad coverage, which is different from the procedural stuff. It's also not as drastic or dire as what Nathaniel Hackett's first 2 weeks were in Denver, which is the extreme. This guy felt like he was in over his head because he has these in-game decisions that aren't even close to correct, and then he hired a game management coach 2 weeks into his tenure as if to say, oh, man, I was unprepared. Like, I don't sense Aaron Glenn's unprepared, but you also have a team that is less talented than most teams they're going to play. But you just want to see them, play up a little bit, play above their level, and I don't think we've seen that from the Jets yet.
I also don't know that it's as simple as, teams with a lot of penalties are poorly coached, which is the way that it tends to be.
No, I hate that.
Portrayed.
It's not right.
But even the procedural stuff, even if you sort of forget the stuff you're talking about, like a pass interference play to rescue bad coverage is basically just bad football play.
Yeah.
Even if you limited it to simply, false starts, delay of game, all those kinds of things, there are definitely instances where it can be. But I don't know that it's always as simple because it's just an easy way of. This is the problem. Like actually grading or even evaluating a head coach is a very difficult thing to do because you're simply not privy to 90% of the job. The 10% you are privy to is watching him on the field, and even then, that is contingent on 50 other players, 50 other people doing other things, right? But the head coach is the guy. Bottom line, wins and losses. If you lost the game, you're doing a bad job, right? So I think. I think everyone realizes that's kind of a clumsy way of doing it. Well, clearly he has to do more than, we can't just judge him on wins and losses. So it's like, well, what's the next level? Well, penalties. Penalties is something we can assign to the coach. Let's do it that way. Let's judge him on how many penalties is his team conceding. I think, look, Probably if you have a head coach and year on year, they're the most penalized team in the league, that's probably something to do with the head coach. I don't think it's as simple as, well, this team's very heavily penalized, therefore the coach is bad, which is kind of how it's used now.
No, but I think from a coaching perspective, you want to see all we can see is within the game. Are they prepared? It isn't just the false starts. I agree. I mean, are they prepared? Are they making quick decisions? Are they ahead of the game? And I don't know if we have good evidence either way, other than, hey, the Jets have no wins. Even the Titans have a win at this point.
Even the Titans have a win.
And so, but he's dropping Rick Kotite. What year was Kotite? 94, 95 for the Jets, something like that. It was a bad run. And so Francesa's really getting back.
I mean, at the risk of throwing stones from our glass house, that's quite an old school reference. You know,
we usually stay within this century, but I drop.
Right.
I mean, I drop.
But that's just because
for fun. I drop 90s references.
That's just because we're not as old as he is. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of a little bit reticent to be like, you're out of touch when you're dropping references from 1994, because we do that all the time, kind of, just within our own frame of aging. But it's pretty old.
It's too early for that, though. It's too early. Too early for the Kotite comment. Again, this isn't like Urban Meyer. Like, by this time, Urban Meyer had already stayed back in Cincinnati grinding on some girl at a club. Just saying. By week 5, that had already happened.
Urban Meyer.
There had already been legendary stories from training camp, and he'd already not known Aaron Donald's name. He'd already, the 10 worst things of the Urban Meyer year in Jacksonville, 8 had already occurred by this time. So by that perspective, more recent perspective, we're not there yet.
It is
with Aaron
kind of
Glenn.
amazing that, I don't know what level of vetting NFL franchises do on prospective head coaching candidates, but it's amazing that Urban Meyer passed whatever it was from any NFL franchise. Like, just a cursory look into his background. How did he get through the process? Nobody asked any questions at any point ever. We just looked at the record and was like, well, he's a winner. I've seen all I need to know.
He's a winner. He's a winner. All right, let's go. Last Shouty Show.
It's time for AJ to go. You are who you are. All that sulking and pouting is starting to wear on the sideline. It's starting to become an issue in the locker room simply because he is who he is. Oh, well, he's a diva. He's just tweeting. He's just a wide receiver. This is just something, it'll blow over. Oh, will it? Did A.J. Brown start his career in Philly?
No.
No, he started in Tennessee, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
How did he get to Philly? He got traded, correct? Mm-hmm. Right. What was he doing before that? Tweeting and complaining. But A.J., he's matured. This is no shot to my quarterback. This has nothing to do with people in the building. They asked him Sunday, what happened after did you stop running? Did he overthrow you? What happened? Did y'all communicate after? Nope. Nothing happened. You're not communicating with your quarterback, but you want us to believe that there's nothing going on. They asked him about the route. You said he stopped. You said he stopped. You said he stopped. Everybody seen him stop. What happened? No, I don't believe I stopped on the play. Yeah, to me, he overthrew me. Like, what are we doing here? Again, you are who you are. You're going to be how you're going to be.
Maybe.
Welcome, Gerald McCoy.
Yeah, new debutant in the Shouty Show world. Maybe this is an indication of how old we are, but having lived through a world of Randy Moss and Terrell Owens and Chad Ochocinco and all those guys, I feel like anything that A.J. Brown is doing right now is like child's play relative to the diva qualities of wide receivers of old.
He's not even doing sit-ups in his driveway crying about his quarterback.
No.
He's not.
He's every now and again posting not even a particularly bad tweet, just like a cryptic tweet. And people are like, that's it. Look at him, diva. What, we get this guy out of the building. I mean, even this thing, right? The question about the overthrow / stopping his route thing, he answered it. Okay, this is a perfectly reasonable point to be like, just don't answer that question. Like, find a way of dead batting it, get out of the situation, don't answer it one way or the other. He did, however, simply answer it relatively honestly, which is, in my opinion, it was a miss. It was an overthrow. Now, I think he was right. He basically lied and said he didn't slow up. He slowed up on the ball. I do think it was missing him anyway. Like, if he'd run that route 100% speed, it still would have been overthrown, right? So I think his fundamental point was correct, which is I think he overthrew me and missed me. I think is that not what we want from receivers to be just honestly answering questions that they're asked?
No.
And instead he's like, wow, look at this. What are we doing here?
I mentioned this the other day. I mean, was it 2 weeks ago? Jamar Chase was talking to Zach Taylor on the sideline, and the cameras go there, and it was Monday Night Football game, and Aikman's like, oh, when the receivers are upset, this is happening. I'm used to seeing that, or blah blah blah. Like one of my big pet peeves, Sam, is when there's a conversation on the sideline, whether it's animated or not, and you can't hear a word of it, and you're just guessing, projecting what he's saying right here. I'm open. Got to get me the ball, just because that's what Michael Irvin used to say to me, or whatever. And Aikman didn't go that far. I'm just giving an example.
Throw Michael Irvin into the conversation of diva wide receivers. They covered up Michael Irvin stabbing a guy with a pencil or whatever it was back in the day. Yeah. You're telling me A.J. Brown belongs in that conversation?
He wasn't doing cryptic tweeting back in the day.
That's true.
He had serious stuff going on.
Michael Irvin never cryptically tweeted anything back in his 90s heyday.
Speaking of, I think Ocho in like 07 or something he was one of the very first people on Twitter. He was like endorsing Twitter when the thing started. He was, I think it was 07, 08. So my point is, we're always looking for wide receiver drama because that's what we're expecting.
But it's also,
and there might be some elements of this, but yeah, they just won the Super Bowl with the very same A.J. Brown. They went to the Super Bowl in 2022. The offense itself, between 22, 23, and 24, has been one of the best in the league because A.J. Brown has been there.
Caleb in the chat is correcting me. It was scissors he stabbed a guy with, not a pencil.
Completely. Like the Arn Anderson Sid Vicious story.
Sure.
Back in 93.
Yeah.
Speaking of 93 references. So,
but
I guess that happened a lot back in the 80s and 90s.
This is also something, scissors were a much more dangerous item back in the day. This is also, like, the NFL tries to find these players. Like, remember that offseason Hard Knocks with the Giants? Like, the Giants were pumped that Malik Neighbors' reaction to being asked how he would handle the ball not going his way or things going badly was like, I'd be pissed. Like, I'm going to get mad. And they're like, great, that's the kind of fiery competitor we want here.
Kind of want
Meanwhile, a wide receiver is getting slightly annoyed by how things are going and is demonstrating that by things as benign as answering a question honestly and reading a book. And people are like, this guy is too much of a hassle. He's a cancer. We need to get him out of the building. What? I mean, this is absurd. Like, the Vikings ended up, even back in the day, the Vikings ended up finally being like, all right, it's time. We got to get rid of Randy Moss, right? For nothing, effectively, by the end of it. Randy Moss was a way bigger pain in the ass than anything A.J. Brown has ever done in his life. And the Vikings would still, if they had to redo history, would erase getting rid of him 100 times out of 100.
I will say, if anecdotally off the top of my head, there are instances where quarterbacks or pass games, because all that matters is winning and production at the end of the day, right? You only make roster moves to try to win more games. So if we're even bringing up A.J. Brown to go, like, will this make the Eagles better? Will this make Jalen Hurts better? Will it make the passing game better? And there's a lot of instances through the years where if you take the number one receiver away from a quarterback, that's bad, and you can't replace him. Then there's other instances. Stafford's had some really good years when he didn't just feed the ball to Calvin Johnson. Randy Moss was traded in week 4 by the Patriots, and then Brady went on to win MVP and was unbelievable with Deion Branch as his top receiver. He had Aaron Hernandez and Gronk as rookie tight ends, but their receiving core, and they had Welker, I think then. Yeah, but they needed Moss at the time, and they got rid of him, and it still worked. So there is history of some addition by subtraction. And there's a history of, say, the Titans. They traded A.J. Brown, who wasn't even a known headache at the time, and they haven't recovered from a receiver perspective. Like, literally haven't recovered in the last 4 years and had a number one receiver despite all of the various people that they've tried. So it's not a clean, sure, let's do it. We haven't seen a whole lot of success from Jalen Hurts in that passing offense without A.J. Brown. Would you really want to risk that at this point?
No, I mean, the point I would make is that A.J. Brown is generally considered like a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, right? He ranks 27th in receiving yards and 20th, I think, in receptions this season. Like, how would you want him to, like, would you expect him to be angry with that dynamic, right? Even though the Eagles have won games. Again, it's not like they've been dominating people. Like, the passing game has felt like a bit of a problem. So I think this is on the relative low end of the spectrum of how I would expect a high-end wide receiver to be reacting in this particular situation. Like, things are not going swimmingly there. He is or isn't being used to the best of his ability. It is a problem, and all he's doing at the moment is looking a little bit annoyed about it and doing some relatively benign things in terms of like tweets or answering questions publicly. I think this is pretty tame stuff.
What about the take from Gerald?
Which was?
It's time for A.J. Brown to go.
Oh, I think that's absurd. Like, that's absolutely farcical.
Welcome to the Shouty Shows, Gerald McCoy. It's good. It's bold. Yeah, I agree. I would keep A.J. Brown if I was the Eagles. They just won the Super Bowl with him. I think they've shown you could do it. I'm telling you, there's going to be a game. I don't know if it's this week or next week.
Yeah. I mean, there's already been a game this year where late in the game, like the second half revival against whoever it was in
the Rams.
2 or 3, where it was A.J. Brown taking over. Yeah. A.J. Brown taking over, dominating the Rams, feeble, small cornerbacks.
He's going to go 10 for 160 and 2 touchdowns sometime in the next 3 weeks, and we'll forget about
in this world of close games where the Eagles are narrowly winning by a score, they don't win that game without A.J. Brown. So he's already change the result of at least one game this season against another potential playoff team. I think it's utterly ridiculous to think you trade him away because he's slightly unhappy right now.
All right, before we get to the Wednesday update from the Bugler, we are going to call an audible and get to this social media play by the Ringer and Greg Rosenthal so that people can hear what they said and make,
I would just like to distance myself from this petty, petulant, childish.
You sent it to me.
Recrimination that's going on.
Let's hear what they have to say.
I, in fact, applaud what they say and endorse it.
Wow.
Oh, no audio. I don't have audio.
Is audio coming through?
I don't know.
No, audio's not coming through on this. We'll try it again.
No audio.
So
they're closed captions, though. So,
they do have captions. Yeah. They're just over there making fun.
Williams. There we go. Tawoma Dunze. That's going to get old really quick.
Turnover where they play turns into like, ouchie. My biggest boo-boo.
Can't believe that's a real stat. Big time throw. It just sounds like it was made up by like a kindergartner. Big time throw.
The big league chew.
Yeah, how many big time throws does he have? 11.
Yeah, it is really funny that it's like the foremost analytical site in the world, but like Steve Palazzolo's like son created this one stat.
Wearing a suit on ESPN, like Dak Prescott has 11 big time throws. K-Whip Williams, Tawoma Dunze. That's going to get old really quick.
Turnover where they play turns into like, ouchie. My biggest boo-boo.
I think that was funny, and I think it's accurate, and I think you deserve every part of that.
I disagree. Big time throws. That's a great name.
I've been telling you for years.
I did it myself.
Yes, that's the problem.
Keep Harry, Teddy, Benny, and Toby out of this. None of them named it.
No, but what the point is not to attack your children. The point is to say that this is a name that sounds like your children came up with it, which I've been telling you for years. You are terrible at naming things, and this is a great example of which I have never thought that that's what it sounds like, but they're right.
You know what else I named?
What's that?
Shouty Shows. I came up with that.
Okay.
I think I came up with the entire idea.
A blind squirrel finds a nut every now and again.
No, I've got good names in there, including Big Time Throw. It's better than Big Boy Throw, whatever Colin had earlier.
I mean, that wasn't designed as a stat, but,
Big Time Throw. It's good. BTTs, turnover-worthy plays. They're good. They're in the lexicon.
No. See, the fact that you need to shorten it to BTTs.
I could put a suit on and go on ESPN and say Big Time Throws and sound like an adult, and people would get it.
Not really. The fact that we needed to shorten it to BTTs and TWPs is exactly why they suck as a name.
No. And
you're just over here butthurt that people are calling you out for it.
No. Dimes, yeah. Dimes became something in the lexicon. BTTs. Something that has an acronym doesn't immediately make the original name bad. Mm-hmm. You want something that you can acronymize.
Acronymize?
Yes.
Is that a word?
Yes, I just made it.
Okay.
It's good.
Yeah.
You want something that can.
Anyway, the Ringer Fantasy guys are funny. Go follow them.
No, they were funny when they did their Gus Johnson, Jack Sawyer bit. When they're making fun of other people, it's funnier.
That's what
when
we're
I'm the butt of their jokes, it's not as funny.
I disagree.
And we'll have a stern discussion when we meet.
I think
again.
in either scenario, it's funny, and it's accurate.
And
both
Greg
times.
just jumping in, talking about ouchies and everything.
Yeah.
They're all hopped up on Guinness in Dublin.
Yeah,
making fun of me.
with their little scally caps.
Yeah,
that they apparently got given by the bar.
Oh, that was from the bar?
Yeah. I was telling Danny Kelly that they're almost certainly there's appearing somewhere on like a wall of, American tourists. Like here, take these. And then somebody's in there with a camera. Like there's a wall that's just like, here's all the idiot Americans wearing these scally caps.
Oh yeah, so they were the idiot Americans.
Yeah, in this scenario.
Good. They deserve it.
I mean, you would have been if we'd gone as well. You would have been a much larger idiot American in your scally cap.
Glad we didn't go. Anyway, fully addressed. Let's get to the Wednesday update from the Bugler.
Now it's time for the Wednesday update, brought to you by the Cincinnati Bugler.
Just 1 week away from the Bengals hosting a Thursday night football game. Have you reached out to?
No, we're probably way too late to ask BJ about that.
What about Fitz and Witt? You gonna get them? You gonna reach
out? Why are you asking me?
You talk to Witt more than me. And Fitz doesn't remember working with me on the Super Bowl
special. Yeah, you need to text Fitz and be like, hey, long-time coworker.
I don't have his
number.
You
don't have his number? I think I have Witt's number.
That's what I mean. You get Witt.
But last time it was at the Super Bowl and he ghosted us.
What about you and Sherm talk a lot? You get Sherm on the show.
Yeah.
Former coworker at PFF when he had his podcast.
I don't know how much Sherm likes us.
Oh, I don't think so either.
No. Yeah, I think he did when we were like, when he had good coverage numbers and grades and stuff at PFF. And then
sounds right.
Once we cease to be useful to him, I don't know that he loves us. Oh, he also, he was the guy. He basically went Ryan Clark, only nobody cares because it was at me instead of Pete Schrager. But he's like, I don't respect your opinion because you never played the game.
Get him. He should be sitting in the seat here next week. We get Sherm on the show. Everybody that comes into town for Prime.
And I think I deserve.
How about Al?
I think I deserve some credit for not sending him to my YouTube highlights of the IAFL.
Oh, you telling me I didn't play?
How
many Hall of Fames are you in?
Look at this
so
touchdown
far as a football player.
We were both former wide receivers turned defensive backs because neither one of us could catch that well. Wow.
You and Sherman are basically the same guy.
Just the same person.
You're the Richard Sherman of the IAFL.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I'm saying. I think I deserve some credit for not bringing that up to him,
All right. Cincinnati Bugler, breaking news and Cincinnati related. Joe Flacco has been traded from the Cleveland Browns, along with a 6th-round pick from the Browns in exchange for a 5th-round pick. So the pick swap, the all-important pick swap in today's NFL. You're not just getting a pick for nothing.
Yeah.
So Joe Flacco, that's the move. So on Monday, Bengals press conference, head coach Zach Taylor, they were asking him, is it Jake Browning's job? And he's like, we'll see. And we all got our wheels turning, right? He said, we'll see. So it's like, all right, where are we going with this?
Which just means no.
Yeah.
Like, he's definitely getting replaced. Don't worry about it.
In other words, like, we're trading for something.
Right.
And, I think we all wanted to see Jameis Winston throwing the ball to Jamar Chase.
That's all anybody wants.
Or T. Higgins. Yeah. Just for the excitement, right? When you see the Bengals on the schedule, you'll say, hey, they're playing the Packers this weekend. They're probably going to lose, but at least you get to see Jameis, and at any given time, he could throw up 450 with 4 picks.
Yeah.
And that would be fun. But it's Joe Flacco coming to Cincinnati behind this Bengals offensive line.
I think Jamar Chase and T. Higgins is too much.
Jamar Chase.
At in the general direction
T. Higgins,
of,
Keyshawn Nixon.
Yeah.
Jameis
Winston throwing the ball at Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. That's what we want to see. Whether or not it's to them is different. So the interesting thing about this is, okay, it's a pick swap. However, it's a pick swap from it's the Lions pick, right? So this pick swap is functionally going to end up being the guts of 2 rounds. Like, it's going to be the Bengals, assuming.
So the Browns traded the Lions 6.
Yes.
Which is probably a late 6.
Correct. So you assume the Lions are going to be very good and their pick is going to be at the bottom of each round, whereas the Bengals, if they continue to have this level of quarterback play, are probably going to be towards the top of their round. So we're talking about like the guts of 2 rounds to drop rather than just, the middle.
So we're talking Andrew Berry, just from a Browns perspective really quick here. Andrew Berry now in the last few months has traded Kenny Pickett for a 5. Is that right?
Did he get a 5 on the way? Yeah, I think so.
And then this move for Joe Flacco.
I mean, look,
or 6 for Pickett, whatever it was.
I think a team trading anything for Joe Flacco in October of 2025 for the 40-year-old quarterback that was just dumped from another bad football team for a third-round rookie with just like 3/4 of the season still left to play is absolutely absurd. I think people being optimistic about at this point, I think the idea of Joe Flacco is significantly different from the reality, right? Like people are like, oh, this is great. Joe Flacco is a massive upgrade from Jake Browning. Is he? Have you watched Joe Flacco play football recently?
I'm just saying. I wrote Joe Flacco off 5-6 years ago.
Yes. This is part of the point.
He goes and elevates the Jets offense, and he did a nice job in Cleveland in 2023. Now, to be fair, Jake Browning also did a nice job in Cincinnati in 2023.
Yes.
That was 2 years ago. And for a minute last year, I thought Joe Flacco made the Colts offense a little bit better than what they were under Anthony Richardson, but that ran its course.
This is a guy who has been benched for Anthony Richardson and Dylan Gabriel in the last year and a bit. The Joe Flacco, like he's able to go out there and go YOLO a bit, and sometimes there'll be 300-yard games in there. But functionally, Joe Flacco has been playing pretty bad football for quite a long period of time. This is a guy who has already been effectively de facto retired once before. Like he was sitting on the couch and nobody was calling, not because he's a great baller and awesome and should be starting games, but because the league was basically done with him until a team got desperate enough to call him up. And then actually, to his credit, Joe Flacco did spark something, did show that he can still go out there, have 300-yard games, etc. But Joe Flacco right now is playing the kind of football that gets you benched on a bad football team. He's also playing unusually terribly under pressure, and the Bengals have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL.
That's a concern.
This is a terrible fit, and I don't know that it's a significant upgrade over Jake Browning, who people have just, like, Browning has played his way to the bench right now. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But this is the same guy who, within the same sort of time span that Joe Flacco has last played functional football, also played functional football. So why did that go away? Is it all Jake Browning's fault, or is it the fact that his offensive line is garbage right now and nothing is working for the Bengals offense? If it's the latter, then why is it going to be different with Joe Flacco at quarterback? Look, it's a relatively low-cost thing, right? Even if it's dropping 2 full rounds late in a draft. It's not cost less, though. And I don't know that it's changed anything in their situation. So I would have just gone for an option that didn't cost me anything.
I've seen the point made that Joe Burrow's not out for the season. There is a return potentially, I don't know if it's early January or it's at least in the playoffs.
Theoretically.
That's
assuming this goes optimally and it doesn't linger and it doesn't become... Because remember, like we're in a world where Aaron Rodgers is going to come back for a playoff run.
He never was going to.
Exactly.
He was never going to with his Achilles.
Correct.
You bought... The one time you actually bought into some of that. Oh, Aaron Rodgers is walking a month after surgery.
I mean, if they'd been in the playoff mix, maybe he might have actually given it a go and been completely hobbled and whatever. But the point is, it probably was never happening, just like this may never happen.
If the Bengals, they've lost 3 straight. They're 2-3. Had they just lost the Jags game in week 2 or something,
we would already be saying their season is over.
And they're 1-4.
Right.
Because I've seen the point made, hey, if Flacco can right the ship a little bit, they sneak into the playoffs in this wide open AFC.
Yes.
To get Burrow back, that's well worth it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, like would it be worth it if they made the playoffs and then you got Joe Burrow back for a run? Yes, I think it would be worth it. I just don't know that Flacco is the guy to get that done.
The only thing stopping me at the moment from saying their season is over already and they just don't know it is that division may not have a particularly strong winner, right? Currently, the Steelers are 3-1, but Rodgers is not exactly lighting the world on fire. That offense is not incredible. The Steelers could easily win that division with something in and around 500, right? Or Baltimore, I think, is still favored for that division, even though they're 1-4 and look like one of the worst teams in the NFL right now, because that's the dynamic. So I don't think the Bengals are going to have a good record by the end of the year, but a not good record by the end of the year might still have them in the mix for that division, which is the thing. My point is simply, I don't know that Joe Flacco is moving the needle in terms of their ability to win these games or not.
This is the third time a quarterback has been traded inside the division this century.
Yes.
The first one, Drew Bledsoe, traded from the New England Patriots to the Buffalo Bills after Brady took Bledsoe's job after the 0-1 season.
Yep.
And there was a minute there. Early 2003, the Bills beat up on the Patriots week 1. Bledsoe looked great early in 2003. There was a minute where it was like, did Belichick make the right move? He did. But there was a minute there where it looked like, wow, that's sketchy. Donovan McNabb was traded from the Eagles to Washington. There was never a point where that was in doubt that was the right move for Philadelphia. I'm saying that was absolutely the right move. It was never in doubt. And then this is the third one, Flacco. It's also only the third time in the second straight year that the Bengals have traded for a player in season.
Yeah. I mean, I think the bottom line is a division rival was willing to trade away this guy for the cost of a pick swap in those later rounds, right? That should probably tell you all you need to know about what this is doing for your chances of winning football games. Again, it's relatively low cost. What the hell? I would simply have gone for something that wasn't low cost, that was no cost, right? I would have started Brett Rippon next week instead of releasing him for Joe Flacco. I would have gone trawling practice squads and the open street free agent market and gone looking for a quarterback that I think I could have started. Like, again, I think that their season is basically toast with any of these quarterbacks under center, and I don't think that Joe Flacco has changed anything for their prospects.
Other trade yesterday, and Adam Schefter basically predicted a trade every Tuesday, a trade or two every Tuesday up until the trade deadline, which is
good news for the Wednesday shows.
Which is exciting. So we can, for the Bugler to like really get that instant Bugler reaction 24 hours later, like newspapers do.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do.
Can we embargo it until the print edition? Nobody can talk about this for 24 hours until
the evening edition will have it.
Right.
Then we'll
until the print edition of the Bugler can go live.
The Chargers have traded with the Baltimore Ravens for Odafe Oweh, pass rusher, along with a 7th-round pick because, again, got to have a pick swap.
Yeah.
In exchange for safety Alohi Gilman and a 2026 5th-rounder. So it's Oweh and a 27 7th for Gilman safety and a 2026 5th-round pick. Interesting trade here, Sam. What was your initial reaction to this?
Yeah, so, I mean, first of all, it was initially it was like, well, you got to wait for the exact terms to come out. My subsequent reaction, having seen what the actual terms are, I like it a lot more for the Chargers than for the Ravens. Odafe Oweh has been a real disappointment, I think, as a player. 1st-round pick, albeit the bottom of the 1st round, but this was a guy with ridiculous physical tools, like 6'5", 265, who ran in the 4.3s as a pass rusher. I mean, those are mouth-watering physical tools. These are the types of things that pushed Trayvon Walker to the #1 overall pick of the draft. And yeah, he'd been unproductive in college, but the idea was in the Ravens with their scheme, and like this could be special. And it's not only has it not been special, it's been actively bad. And we just talked about him last week. Baltimore's defense was missing all kinds of players, but he was there and he didn't get anything really against a subpar offensive line. So, but I love that as a reclamation project. Like, this guy has incredible physical tools. It's not costing us that much. The Chargers could use additional bodies on the defensive line. Absolutely, let's kick the tires and see if we can make something happen here for a defense that's very good and well coached and those types of things. From Baltimore's point of view, I get, trying to cash in because you've kind of given up on him at this point. I just don't think they've cashed in for, particularly much.
So I disagree that he's been a massive disappointment, Oweh.
Really?
Yeah.
How?
Like, he's been a solid pass rusher.
Has he?
He had 11 NFL sacks last year.
NFL sacks?
Yeah.
That's what we're going with.
13 PFF sacks? Is that better?
No, just that as well as I do, that sacks are a terrible way of measuring.
Oh, no, I was just trying to say that was his first year, because one of the questions was he had 0 sacks his last year at Penn State.
Yeah.
So people used Oweh as this example of does production matter in college? The same way you say, well, Shamar Stewart had 1.5 sacks last year for Texas A&M, or Trayvon Walker didn't have sacks, but the underlying metrics for Oweh were fine at Penn State. He just didn't have the sack totals. And I'm just making the point. Last year was the first year he actually had a decent sack total. He was always in like that 4 to 5 range. Last year was decent. I think the underlying metrics are fine. He's okay against the run, but he's he's an okay pass rusher. He's a solid pass rusher.
I don't even know if he's been that. He had basically 1 year of significant production in terms of rate, right? Like pass rush win rates, like how often he's actually beating guys. Everything else has been pretty pedestrian. Again, especially for a guy with those physical tools. And I mean, okay, if he's not been a disappointment, why are the Ravens getting rid of him?
Because he's in the last year of his contract.
So
you've got
not getting anything. Like if you can let him walk at the end of his contract and cash in for a comp pick.
So I think he's solid right now. I think if you can get him at a decent price, it's not bad. He's probably a mid to low end number 2 pass rusher. I don't know what that's going to be worth, but clearly the Ravens didn't want to do that. They do have Mike Green. They're hoping he develops to basically take that spot going forward. But the Chargers, I think this gives them, another body that they could, if they could re-sign him at the right price. They've got the connection there with this is the front, the front office that drafted him years ago, and so they only have Khalil Mack under contract for 1 more year. So I think there's something there. Kicking the tires on Oweh, who's he's a solid pass rusher. I use the word solid a lot because he's not great. I don't think he's awful. He's not. We've used Bud Dupree a lot as a guy that just doesn't get pressure at a high rate. Does not create any sort of impact. I think Oweh is better than that, right? He's not completely useless as a pass rusher. Pass rush win rate has been up at 17 before. I think he's fine. I think he's a pretty good player, but he's not the type of player you want to pay $20 million. So the Ravens get out from that decision. And the other one that I think that's interesting is the Ravens going with Alohi Gilman coming in, a true free safety, where they have Kyle Hamilton.
They also just signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson to the practice squad. Like they've added 2 safeties in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, and they already. In one of the things that made us love the Ravens this year was the versatility of their safeties, Kyle Hamilton and rookie Malachi Starks. So it's one of the interesting team-building dynamics is you're 5 weeks into the season, and what?
Liam Reynolds in the chat, not completely useless. What an endorsement.
I mean, you're saying he's not – I think he's good.
I think he's
solid.
Pretty unquestionably been a disappointment given expectations or draft status.
So late first round, I think him and Kwity Paye were both in the same draft class. I think he's been a little better than Kwity Paye. But that, as first-round picks, disappointing. Yeah. You'd rather get more from those guys. But I think Oweh's going to get paid a decent amount of money this offseason still. And I think as a 2, that's fine. Like if you pay him edge rush 2 type of money, I think it's a good player. So anyway, what the interesting dynamic to me is when a team 5 weeks into the season, has to reshuffle the deck and say, okay, we're not what we thought we were. Last year, we moved Kyle Hamilton from the line of scrimmage to free safety, and that was a great move for our defense. Now Hamilton's banged up, but what are they going to do with all these safeties and reshuffle them and seeing what sticks and seeing which roles are best? The Ravens are trying some stuff, but Gilman's more of a true free safety. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's that slot free safety type of hybrid, and you already have 2 of those guys, Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks. I think they're going to see where these pieces fit once Hamilton's healthy and ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, my first question is how banged up is Kyle Hamilton based off these 2 safety moves in the last 24 hours? My second question would be, okay, if he's coming back, does that signal this move that you've talked about of putting him closer to the line of scrimmage again, into the slot, and letting the sort of true safety stuff be handled by the guys that they've just signed and Malachi Starks? So, yeah, interesting things to monitor with Kyle Hamilton specifically, and then for that Ravens defense overall.
I see the chat talking about Oweh's almost sacks, which I do call pressures. Like that's better than getting blocked.
Yeah.
Because if you do at least force the quarterback to move, even if you don't finish the play, you're either getting them out of the pocket where they're less efficient most of the time, unless they're Mahomes, or that you're giving someone else on the team an opportunity to finish the play. It's like a Shamar Stewart type of deal where Shamar Stewart could just go be a bull in a china shop and let someone else finish it up. I think that is an important thing. So that's why I think Oweh is useful. How about that instead of not useless?
Yeah, I mean, he's not
and good enough that I think the Chargers with him, Tui Peloto, Khalil Mack, him and Tuli maybe is the 1-2 next year. It's not great, but it's better than then you draft somebody, get someone else in there. It's not a bad setup at edge.
He's not
particularly
he's not particularly bad at finishing either relative, like, just statistically in terms of like basically pressure to sack rate from the defensive point of view. He's at he's over 10%. My math is not good enough to do that on the fly, but he's over 10%, which is not terrible. Like if you're under 10%, we have a definite statistical problem that you don't finish plays particularly well. Over 10%, 15, I think is league average. He's somewhere between 10 and 15 based off my quick math.
He hasn't been great early this year, but the last...
Oh, yeah, this year obviously he's been terrible.
The last 2 years...
He hasn't got a sack.
The last 2 years, Oweh's been an efficient pass rusher.
So he's 11.5% for his career in terms of pressure to sack rate, which is not... It's below average, but it's not terrible.
So, yeah, interesting move there. And Gilman, I think, is the last year of his contract as well. So, 2 players that you're getting something for 2 players that you're going to have to make a call on.
Also, just a Harbaugh brother trade.
Yeah, the Harbaugh. Yeah, both organizations very, very well connected. Let's go with Terrion Arnold here. Shoulder injury for the Lions cornerback. They're banged up at corner. Terrion Arnold, DJ Reed, and S. Rakestraw. Initially, Dan Campbell said out for a long time. However, second opinion found that the shoulder injury isn't as bad as feared, and he could return in as soon as a month. Source told Adam Schefter on Tuesday. Terrion Arnold, we'll talk a little bit about the 2024 draft class. Disappointing, I think. Sophomore campaign again for Arnold. 6 penalties again this year already. Mm-hmm. But still a player that the Lions need, and he's out for at least a few weeks here.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big blow if they do lose him for the season. He hasn't been playing spectacularly during his time in the NFL, but as soon as he's out, it's like, Rocky Yassin is now in. You don't feel great about that as a starting cornerback going forward. And honestly, maybe even the bigger problem than that is, well, what if he got hurt, in the next 3 quarters of the season plus the playoffs that you're hoping to be in and go on a run through? That's starting to get very concerning.
Lions have the Chiefs this week. Despite their loss and being 2-3, they're becoming very difficult to cover with Worthy being out there, the speed that they have, Tyquan Thornton balling out. But they have the Chiefs and Bucks over these next couple weeks, 2 huge games just because it's Chiefs, still one of the better teams in the NFL, despite the record, despite the power rankings, wherever they have the Chiefs. And then the Bucks in 2 weeks with, potential number 1 seeding on the line here for the Lions.
They were showing this graphic, obviously, on the broadcast, but 3 guys that run in the 4.2s at wide receiver. Is this the fastest receiving core that's ever been in the NFL?
Yeah. And
even with the drag factor of the guys that don't run the 4.2?
Is Marquise Brown still that fast? Right. I don't know. But as far as, Thornton and Worthy still look fast, and they're still, showing that on the field. Yeah.
JJ in the chat says, Sam, as someone doctor adjacent, why does the second opinion always totally override the initial opinion? I don't think it does. I just think that it's like a selection bias thing. You're only hearing about the ones that do. You don't hear about the 700 second opinions that say exactly the same thing and you're still screwed.
He got a second opinion. Yeah. It was worse than the first, actually.
It was exactly the same. He also thinks you're shut down for the next month. Nobody's reporting that.
It's selection bias makes a ton of sense there. We also have a note here.
A note?
From producer Will. No undefeated teams heading into Week 6 for the first time since 2014.
Earliest the 72 Dolphins are celebrating in a hot minute.
The earliest champagne popping for the 72 Dolphins since 2014. In over a decade. It's interesting to me because there's a lot of one-win teams now.
Yep.
Some are miracles, Tennessee. And there's one team with no loss. So we're starting to get this distinction between the good and the bad. And some of the one-win teams can be feisty and tough or whatever, but we spent a lot of time this offseason talking about this perceived parity, not just in roster construction, but in just moves, right? There's fewer free agents hitting the market. The drafts don't seem as disastrous. Not surprising based off what we've been seeing these last couple of years.
Yeah.
It's just one data point, but is there more parity now?
Maybe. I think people might be over-egging that a little bit. Detroit, they had a weird game to start the season, and since then they've looked great, like we expected them to. Philadelphia have been, stumbling, but are pretty close to being undefeated. I think we just had a lot of teams drop 1, like Buffalo. Buffalo would have been undefeated, but for that game against New England where they lost the turnover margin by 2 for the first time in God knows how long, right? Buffalo win that game. We're talking about them as an undefeated team, looking great. I just think it's been a weird year where all
Eagles
the
were up
contenders
17-3 into the fourth quarter, and they would have been undefeated.
And you can say, look, the reverse is true. They've snatched wins from nowhere. But I think ultimately we are a couple plays away from there being a couple of undefeated teams, and nobody would be talking about this.
Last couple things to mention. Chargers placed running back Amarian Hampton on IR, so that's him and Najee Harris down now for the Chargers. Packers have opened the 21-day practice window for Christian Watson, their wide receiver. Whatever offseason show that we did I call him one of their pivotal players or most impact? Yeah, because he's a deep threat.
Year.
Every receiver deep threat. But if he does come back, I mean, they want Matthew Golden to be that stretch the field threat, and he's shown a couple plays here and there, but Watson has been that guy. So if he can come back.
We're also seeing with Quentin Johnston this season that, guys that have that special ability of size, speed, combination, you can figure it out after a while. Like Christian Watson has been pretty disappointing in the NFL so far, and his ball skills generally are not good. You would say exactly the same thing about Quentin Johnston before this season, and Johnston didn't even need to get to the good side of the thing to be effective. He just needed to go from like the 9th percentile to the 50th percentile, and we're talking about him as an impact playmaker. If Christian Watson goes from being what he's been so far to just being average at that stuff, those are game-changing plays.
And then similarly, the Panthers, they've opened the 21-day practice window for wide receiver Jalen Coker, undrafted free agent last year who showed a lot, had a really nice rookie season. When you think about how much they're feeding the ball to Teterow and McMillan, we've seen some flashes from Xavier Leggett, but very inconsistent. I think the Panthers could really use Jalen Coker as a complementary piece to that offense.
No, that's huge for them. They, I think, desperately need him back in the lineup, and then they need him to continue what he was doing last year as well.
All right, we got roadside assistance time for the New York Jets. Talking about our friends over at Root Insurance. Root Insurance believes that good drivers deserve better rates, so they've created a new kind of car insurance that rewards good drivers in an easy-to-use app. Traditional car insurance companies focus on demographics like age, zip code, occupation, and credit score to price your coverage. When Root offers a rate, your behavior behind the wheel gets more weight than any other single factor. They don't use occupation or education level to negatively affect your rate. While you drive, Root gathers and analyzes data from your smartphone's sensors, and after a few weeks, you'll get a car insurance quote based primarily on your driving. Save up to 44% off your initial Root quote after you take the test drive. If you need a tow truck, jump start, or if you lock your keys in the car, Root will cover the help you need to get you back on the road when you opt into Roadside Assistance. The Root app makes it easy to edit your coverage, update your policy, or file a claim in just 3 minutes. You can get started at Root.com. And today, Sam, we are providing Roadside Assistance to the only winless team in the league. We've discussed them a couple times here today. The New York Jets, they're 0-5. They're bringing up Rich Kotite as for Aaron Glenn coaching comparisons. How do we help the New York Jets?
Yeah, it is tough because they need to find a way of sustaining the way they start games, which tends to be pretty optimistic and looking feisty and looking like they're going to show up for this performance, and then a bad thing happens and it all just seems to wilt on them. They need to stick to the run game as well. Like as with the best will in the world, you do not want Justin Fields dropping back as many times as he did last week.
61 times. That first drive against Miami 2 Mondays ago is the way the Jets, 11 runs and one pass is how the Jets want to play football.
I mean, yeah, maybe that's a bit too extreme, but you definitely want it to be more run tilted than pass tilted. Even with, losing players through injury and stuff, you just have to rely on, Justin Fields as part of the run game. Let's try and dial it up. Let's give teams as many option looks as possible. Let's really enforce our will on the ground. And then, let's have Fields try and pass off the back of that.
Last year's draft class, we're going to talk about the 2024 draft class as a whole in a minute here, but I'll just get we'll start with Olu Fashanu, their first-round tackle last year. I'm a little disappointed in how he's played this year. He's coming off of a rough game last week against the Cowboys. He looked like one of the better pass protectors in the league, or potentially one of the better pass protectors either in the draft and then eventually in the league as he develops. And I thought last year down the stretch played much better at left tackle after they started moving him around. So I'm like, hey, we thought we both expected a big season out of him this year. Technique-wise, he's out of sync again. It reminds me of the game I always highlighted that he played against Ohio State where JTT got him 4 or 5 times. And I'm like, man, it's just technique-wise. He's just not getting to his pass sets efficiently. Footwork's all over the place. I saw some of that against Dallas last week and this season. Disappointed in Fashanu. And then their second pick was early third round, Malachi Corley, is not even with the team anymore. And this is, Joe Douglas was spending the entire second round trying to trade up for Corley.
Yeah.
So he's not even with the team. Braylon Allen is hurt. They're not getting much from last year's draft class.
No, they're not. Fashanu, I know he left the game last week injured. I'm wondering if he's carrying something, and that contributes to it. But if he isn't, and he's just playing like this at this point, it's definitely an issue for them. The other thing, by the way, about the sticking with the run game thing is it's been effective, like on early downs in particular.
Yeah.
They're not putting themselves behind the chains by hammering themselves into a brick wall running the ball. Like, it's generally been very effective on early downs, and then they go away from it and try and pass the ball too much. I think they need to stick to what should be their philosophy longer.
Yeah, because there's too much pressure on Justin Fields in the drop back pass game. Even Tyrod Taylor, they fell behind against the Bucs in the game that Tyrod started.
It's Tyrod.
It's Tyrod. That was a big psyop. They were just making stuff up.
I mean, Baker would tell you it's Tyrod. He won't correct you. Tyrod won't, but Baker will.
That's like one time Bijan came out and people are using Bijan, even though he said it's Bijan.
But he then came back and said, "No, actually, it's okay."
It's
Tyrod has always stayed with Tyrod. People just refuse to acknowledge it, like you.
Whatever. Tyrod. They were passing too much against the Bucs. So, yeah, stick to the run game. Don't commit as many penalties.
Yeah.
Don't fumble on the goal line going in against the Dolphins, right? Just don't make the big mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, the penalties thing, that should be easy enough to clean up, right? Just start focusing on that as a team. Internally, every player takes some accountability. You can't, this team isn't good enough to be committing that number of penalties. So clean that up and stick to the run game, and you might win a game.
That's our Roadside Assistance.
Yep.
Go check out the Root app. We did our best with the Jets. Let's talk about 2024 NFL draft class. Last week, we did a little rookie update. What about second round players that are do you have any high level takes?
Players.
What's that?
Second year players.
Second year players. What did I say?
Second round.
Second year players. Where do you want to start? Quarterbacks?
I guess. Let's try and keep the quarterbacks thing relatively concise because we could be here all day on that.
Go for it.
Well, you got quite a collection. You got Caleb Williams goes number 1, Jaden Daniels 2, Drake May number 3, 3 of them with the first 3 picks, and then relatively surprisingly, the next 3 went in quite quick order as well. Michael Penix Jr. at number 8 to the Falcons, J.J. McCarthy 10 to the Vikings, and then Bo Nix at 12 to the Denver Broncos. All of them except McCarthy, you would say, have at least shown pretty exciting flashes over their career. At one point, it looked like 5 of the 6 were going to be really good. And then I think you've seen some regression from Bo Nix year 2, albeit he's coming off a pretty good game. And then Michael Penix has been hit or miss this season as well. And J.J. McCarthy looked horrific before being benched in a bad situation. Not benched, injured, and hasn't gotten the job back yet. In a bad situation with Minnesota with offensive line down and without Jordan Addison, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think 5 out of the 6 teams have at least seen enough that they're happy. And then J.J. McCarthy, we still don't know. Missed all of last year, and he's played 1 good quarter out of 8.
I mean, I think Washington is ecstatic over Jaden Daniels. They look like they hit a home run. Best quarterback in the class so far. Looks spectacular. The Patriots, I think, are now very happy with Drake May. Coming out party against Buffalo, if you believe in that kind of thing. He's arrived. Drake May is going to be one of the next young great quarterbacks. Caleb Williams still looks like he's got special talent. It's been, inconsistent, and we're still working on getting everything working there from an offensive point of view with Ben Johnson, but I think they probably feel reasonably good about where Caleb Williams is. I don't know that Bo Nix is there yet for Denver. I think that's still, he's shown he can be, but he's also shown that he can't be sometimes. We'll see how that works going forward. And then Michael Penix Jr., obviously they love his talent, but it hasn't looked yet like it looked last year.
And I think we have Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels on primetime, Monday Night Football, facing each other. That was the Hail Mary game last year. They've played some wild games. They had back-to-back years of Thursday night football games, Bears and Commanders, one of the awful, terrible ones that I think put Al Michaels to sleep the first year that they did it on Prime.
Yeah.
And then they had the Hail Mary game last year. Now they get the second half of the doubleheader, 8:15 Monday night this week. That'll be fun.
Broadcasters love putting number 1 versus number 2 quarterbacks together, Even if both the teams are irrelevant, it's like, look at this, is a storyline we can get behind.
Have to do it. And I'll just reiterate with this because we love to have who's the best quarterback in this class? Who made the right decision? Do the Bears actually want Jaden Daniels or somebody? I had Drake May number 1, and look, I've been proven right. I'll just remind everybody what happens sometimes. In these draft classes, it's not always the same quarterback who's the best. It's not like the 2017 draft class. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback from that class,
unquestionably.
Then it was Deshaun Watson. Then it was Mitchell Trubisky. It's pretty clear. I always go back to the 2016 class. Jared Goff, number 1. Carson Wentz, number 2.
Dak in the 4th.
Dak was in the 4th, and Paxton Lynch was also
in the 1st
in the class. And if I remember this off the top of my head, the year 1, Carson Wentz, Dak was best.
Right.
Year 2, it was Wentz. Year 3 was Goff. They went to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Year 4 was back to Dak, maybe. And then year 5 was Goff again.
Since then, it's been Goff versus Dak.
And then it's been Goff versus Dak, and you could make an argument for either one.
Yeah, I mean that year is a good example. 2018, you've got the sort of the battle between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson as MVPs running the last few years, and yet this year people are like Baker Mayfield's MVP.
Yeah,
and
Sam
Darnold all of a sudden looks really good. So
whether it's PFF or EPA, you can say our Darnold has been the best out of all of them this
with
year.
Those two guys having been written off at various points in their career. So the point is reasonable, which is it's rarely a static thing. Or not rarely. It is often not a static thing where one quarterback is just unquestionably the better guy and that order stays year on year on year. If they're all viable because of the nature of, performances swinging up and down, it might not be the same guy every year. That being said, I think you would say at this point, Jaden Daniels looks like the clear best quarterback.
If you were redrafting right now today,
I
I think you'd probably take Jaden Daniels number one.
Yes.
But I also don't think it's not going to be crazy if Drake May has the best season out of any of them for a couple times, or if Caleb Williams has the best season out of all of them a couple times, or if Michael Penix randomly has a year where he's got 9 yards per attempt, if he's aggressive. I'm just saying, that is all in the range of outcomes here.
After Jaden Daniels in a redraft, I think it would be interesting. But I think it's fairly clear that you would draft Jaden Daniels first.
I am not ready to give up on Caleb Williams or Drake May. That'll be in.
And then, unfortunately, for J.J. McCarthy, he looked awful, admittedly in a bad situation. And it's going to be interesting to see what Minnesota does if and when he gets healthy.
It's TBD. People don't like when you trash Bo Nix. So, again, I don't think Bo Nix has played
him. I've just said
I don't think he's played great this year. Right. Definitely played well the other day.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a tough one because I do think Sean Payton has a history of winning with multiple quarterbacks now.
Yeah.
And that is a factor. So I think he might deal with some of the Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan thing. Of course, Sean Payton had Drew Brees. That was different when he had Brees, but even when Brees got hurt, they kept winning. I think he elevated Russell Wilson for a minute in Denver toward the end there, and I think he's done a nice job with Bo Nix and put him in a good position here.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't trashed him. I've just said that he has not picked up where he left off last year, and some of the games this season have looked like the early part of rookie Bo Nix's career, which was not good.
Yeah.
And then he did get it together in the second half of last season.
Too inconsistent.
Yeah, and last week was a game that looked much more like that. My point being, him and Michael Penix Jr., like at the end of last year, you're like, all these quarterbacks look good. All of them. For varying lengths of time, and maybe Caleb Williams, given expectations, hasn't looked as good as we thought he would, but all 5 of these guys might be really good. And 2 of them, Michael Penix and Bo Nix, the ones lower down in that group, didn't just pick up where they left off. They've at least shown some struggles in the first portion of the season relative to what they did late last year.
All right, rest of the draft class. Where do you want to go? I've high level last year's draft class. You've got, I think, the receiving core. The receiving group's interesting. I want to start with the tackles really quick because I mentioned Olu Fashanu.
Yeah.
Joe Alt looks like a star.
Yes.
He's banged up right now. And he did it at right tackle last year, left tackle early this year before the injury.
Yeah.
All of the other first-round tackles, Olu Fashanu, Talese Fuaga, J.C. Latham, Amarius Mims, Tyler Guyton, not great.
No.
Across the board. I thought for this year, I think Fuaga's been okay. He's coming off one of his better games. He got beat up on at times early in the year from pass protection standpoint. J.C. Latham moved to right tackle this year. He's been hurt. Still had, high hopes for him, getting better in year 2, going back to his more natural position. It hadn't really happened yet. Amarius Mims has had his struggles. Tyler Guyton has had his struggles. By the way, Mims and Guyton were 2 players that people debated as inexperienced college players who are a little bit more developmental at the NFL level. I think we've seen elements of that. So I think it's an interesting draft class from a tackle perspective because so many of them came off the board. And I think Alt looks great, and the rest of them I think have some questions still.
Yeah, and you can go, so you've got that first group, or the group that went in the first round, of which it's basically Joe Alt looks spectacular. Everyone else is varying degrees of question marks. You go beyond that, Patrick Paul's actually looked, reasonably okay for Miami. That was a big question mark heading into this year. Blake Fisher's had a lot of starting time for Houston, doesn't look spectacular. You have Roger Rosengarten, who was a surprise rookie starter for Baltimore.
He's been solid for a second rounder.
And then Matt Goncalves was drafted, listed as a tackle, but has kicked inside to guard and has been a pretty solid player so far. It's not been a great class. It's like Joe Alt's the clear star, and pretty much everybody after that has got a level.
And it looks deep because you had the 5 or 6 first rounders, and then you had that group in the second, Kingsley Suamataia, another guy that's moved into guard. But a lot of those guys, even Rosengarten, got late first round buzz at that time. It's still early in tackle development, but I thought we'd see a little bit more from more of those guys.
And don't forget Canada, who's just been getting a start in relief of Taylor Decker.
Yes, Canada. Giovanni Manu. Receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. went number 4 overall. Malik Neighbors went number 6. Roma Dunze went number 9. Brian Thomas Jr. went number 23, yes. And then you had that. And then remember what happened after that.
Well, then you got the chaos of the sort of late first, early second round this year, or this draft class.
You had the Chiefs trade up for wide receiver 5 off the board, and we all said, we don't know who wide receiver 5 is going to be.
Right.
Ladd McConkey, Xavier Worthy, Ricky Pearsall, all of these names, Xavier Leggett, those are the names that came off the board, not necessarily in that order, but over the next 6 or 7 picks, it was a very deep wide receiver class, both at the top and then on that turn from the first and the second round.
Just to run through the list of receivers that come off in the next sort of 20 picks or so, you have Xavier Worthy drafted at the bottom of the first by Kansas City, Ricky Pearsall at 31 to San Francisco, Xavier Leggett 32 to Carolina. There's a run of 4 wide receivers on the trot. Keon Coleman at the top of the second to Buffalo, Ladd McConkey at the top of the second to the Chargers, Jalen Polk to the Patriots, top of the second. That doesn't look great at the moment. And
he's already been traded to the Saints.
And Adonai Mitchell going down as far as 52 to the Colts. So that's a hell of a run of wide receivers with some pretty wild stories within that group already.
Even just, the storylines in there, we always, the joke about, I can't believe the Bills let the Chiefs get Xavier Worthy. Keon Coleman's been okay for them as far as, what they're asking him to do. But Worthy to the Chiefs was a huge story. The Patriots traded out of their spot. And the Chargers traded up to get Ladd McConkey. Patriots traded down and got Jalen Polk again, who's already been traded. So that was a huge
They traded him
story.
while he was on IR? Can you even do that?
Apparently.
Huh.
Yeah, apparently you can. I think it's another one that's like frowned upon or just doesn't happen.
I can't remember that happening very often.
They had to get the guy out of the building. Apparently.
That's been, whether or not you liked or didn't love Jalen Polk, he has been one of the worst wide receivers in the NFL since coming into it. There's a spectacular failure thus far.
Ladd McConkey, I already see the chat talking about his production's down this year, but I think that has as much to do with there's other weapons. Last year, they needed him. Inside, outside, he was the only dependable option. You now have Keenan Allen to steal some of those underneath possession routes. You now have Quentin Johnston taking some of the downfield routes.
Allen in particular, I think, is that's where that production has gone.
So I think that's the bigger issue with McConkey and the lack of production, especially if you're a fantasy player. It's just there's more dependable options for the Chargers right now. And by the way, the offensive line is starting to fall apart now. That's hurting the ability to get the ball down the field. And every big play that they have seems to be negated by penalty in addition to that.
It's not helping.
Then the receivers at the top, right? It's like we were hyping up Brian Thomas Jr. a ton heading into this season, and it's been pretty rough for him overall with the the start to the Liam Cohen era.
Yeah, I mean the top four guys, I think we've covered fairly extensively already just through going through games on a weekly basis. Neighbors look spectacular. His usage has been rough. His quarterback play has been rough, and he's now got a pretty extensive injury history, which is a little concerning. But overall, he looks like a really good player. Marvin Harrison Jr. has been pretty disappointing relative to expectations, basically up until last week. It's like he made one play in the end zone, mossed the dude, and suddenly he might be back. Now, everything else might suck, but Marvin Harrison Jr. might have just got it together, and maybe it was just a confidence thing that was draining him. But relative to what we thought, he's been maybe disappointing, but it's still been solid.
There's always we talk about this a lot at draft time when a player's style doesn't match what we expected coming in.
Yeah.
The example might be Josh Allen's running. Like there was never a point I watched Josh Allen at Wyoming where I'm like he might be unstoppable as a runner. Right. And I may have it might just be a me thing. Like we just missed it or I missed it.
They didn't. He ran around, but it's not like you looked at that and said, "Man, this guy's going to be the next dominant rushing threat at quarterback."
But when a player comes in stylistically different, or Andrew Luck was supposed to be this, you know, super smart, always get the ball out on time, and he turned into like a Brett Favre. Like he really did.
Like meathead type of quarterback.
Really did. Luck played this aggressive, big-time throw, turnover-worthy play style, Sam.
Right.
That was unexpected coming out of Stanford.
He played like he didn't. He played like he didn't have a smart, acute awareness of what was happening to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He played like a guy who was hanging himself out to dry.
So I set that up to say, are you surprised by Marvin Harrison's style, right? Where it's supposed to be sure hands. Like now, if his comeback attempt is, you know, mossing people a couple times at the catch point, that was supposed to be like more of the second part of his skill set. He's supposed to be this smooth route runner, getting open, pretty good at everything, but just a good, smart receiver who's always in the right place at the right time. And instead, it's been a little bit more boom or bust when he's made his back moments. It's been some big plays or mossing people, which wasn't necessarily the number one part of his game.
No, it wasn't. But that, I think, was maybe the thing that was most concerning at this level is why can't he catch the football, or why does he not win at the catch? Like, why does even the stuff that you think he should be really good at, even if everything else fails, why is that not working? So that's why I think a huge part of his problem so far has been a kind of confidence thing, where he's just in his own head, he's dropping balls, like it's all bad. I think maybe that might actually spark something in him because, you know, he's been okay, but then the stuff that's just low-hanging fruit or that he should be really good at has been absent. And just the last week and a half, that looks back maybe. And so it's a little bit TBD on what he's going to be or how good he can be, but he's been solid if disappointing so far. Odunze's kind of had almost the reverse career where year one didn't look particularly good, and this year he's been great. I mean, he's been a really impressive player for them.
And then, as we said, with BTJ, you know, he had that huge catch, that throw from Trevor Lawrence on the comeback drive.
Yeah.
Like, there have been some flashes. He's had two big plays on game-winning drives over
Which
the last
couple
weeks.
I posted this in the comments, but having seen that play a few more times, I would like to revise my instant reaction assessment of it. It's a really, really good throw. And I thought the cornerback made an absolute balls of it.
No, that was just too good.
So, no, it wasn't just that, but Brian Thomas also did that Randy Moss thing that we talked about recently, which is you get, you know, right at the end, you give a little shove in the back and you separate and you move into that space that you just created. So it looked like the cornerback made a complete mess of the ball in the air. And actually what happens is Brian Thomas is right in his back and sort of gives him a little shove and then moves back in the direction of where the ball's about to land. So it's a dime from Lawrence. It's a great play by Brian Thomas to maximize the separation at the catch point, and suddenly it looks like a quite an open window to hit, and it wasn't at the time. That's the stuff they haven't been doing. For whatever reason, those two guys have never been on the same page since the start of their, of Thomas's career in the NFL. They've made some plays together, but rarely are they both coordinating in a way that maximizes like a really big play. And they both did it here to maximum effect.
Anything else on the receiver?
Just that. So that secondary group is kind of chaotic. You've got Xavier Worthy, who looks like maybe a better player than a lot of people gave him credit for. Ricky Pearsall is still very much TBD.
Oh, yeah.
Xavier Legette.
Pearsall looks awesome this year before he's been hurt.
Xavier Legette has been kind of a disaster for the Panthers so far. Very little positivity coming from that. They've already gone to another high-end first-round wide receiver to replace him, and he looks obviously far better at this point. Keon Coleman was a strange pick at the time because he felt like a guy that had to be not an X receiver, and yet the Bills bring him in, say you're playing X, and really everything that he has right now is a contested catch. It just still doesn't feel like a great fit for him, but he's been relatively productive in that situation. McConkey we already talked about. Jalen Polk we already talked about as a disaster. And then Adonai Mitchell we've talked about ad nauseum.
Mostly as a disaster.
Not even a disaster,
No,
but just like the root of at least adjacent to every significant bad play that happens in the Colts passing attack. And I don't know if it's all his fault, but it is worth noting that he's always there, you know?
Yes.
Are there any other wide receivers from that class that we should throw in as a mention?
I don't know offhand.
What about the great Jermaine Burton? How's that worked out?
Not well.
Oh, okay.
Not well for the Bengals.
Troy Franklin in the 4th round. Breakout year.
He's starting to get there.
I didn't read the article, but I saw somebody posting an article. It was like, one of the real bright spots for the Denver Broncos this year is how good Troy Franklin looks. It's how polished and how just competent he looks as a wide receiver. I'm like, yeah, it's
true.
Other than the play where he's dropping the ball still. That's
outside
not great.
of the one or two plays.
Outside of those, looks great.
He's been good. He's been fine.
It is.
Jermaine Burton, this was always in the range of outcomes, right?
Yeah,
my Jermaine Burton hype was tape only.
Sure.
Fantastic football player. We knew he went in the 3rd round, and we didn't even know if he was going to go that high, but we know he went in the 3rd round because of the off-field that has absolutely shown up. They've also, by the way, the Bengals, Princeton, Josivach has had a really good last couple of years.
Yep.
Mitchell Tinsley has stepped up and it has become a depth issue there too, where I thought he was going to be this number 3 option that could have given them some flexibility if he had his head on straight. They've actually added some depth there with the Bengals, and that's the other part of the disappointment of that offense with Jake Browning is they have, not only do they have Chase and Higgins, their 3-4 receivers are decent as well. Plus the tight ends that they've added there. Like they should have an explosive pass game with anybody that can get them the ball. It's tough to get Burton on the field there.
Yeah, it's still very early, but for a receiving class that looked really deep, there really hasn't been much, if any, impact from the depth guys. Jalen Coker is an undrafted free agent, has been, I think, by far the best of those sort of late round guys. There's been very little impact from that group overall, and even getting into the sort of mid to high round, 2nd round, et cetera, it's been pretty disappointing.
I see the chat talking Luke McCaffrey, big 50-yarder the other day. He's had a couple nice plays in there. There's some McCaffrey hype before
a few of these guys have had like the odd play here or there.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
Like Jamari Thrash in the 5th round was a guy that we thought, or I really liked and thought he could be something for the Browns. And in preseason, it looked like he might be a much bigger part of that offense, and still hasn't really happened. Now, maybe that's Joe Flacco or et cetera. But even the guys that you thought this is an intriguing player in an intriguing situation, Tez Walker in Baltimore, he's made a couple plays as well, but it's still just hasn't really worked for that group.
So remember the uniqueness of this draft class. The only time in history that the first 14 players were all on the offensive side of the ball. The first, talking defensive line now, the first 2 defensive players off the board, Latu to the Colts and Byron Murphy, the second, to the Seahawks. I thought both players were okay as rookies. Both look very good this year. Latu I've hyped up on 12 straight shows now.
Right.
But much more disruptive. He's got 2 picks, Latu, right? Shut down edge rusher, Latu, but looks more dynamic as a pass rusher. Byron Murphy looks a lot more disruptive. And then the third player off the board, or the next defensive player off the board was 17 overall, Dallas Turner. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of hype about him going top 10.
Most people, I think, had him as edge 1.
Yeah, you and I both liked Latu first.
Yeah.
And all my numbers and data said Dallas Turner's. I wouldn't probably touch him in the 1st round. I'd let someone else take him, even though he wasn't awful. But Latu, and then of course the very best defensive player has been Jared Verse, who went at 19. So interesting edge class. Just to sort it out really quick: Latu at 15, Dallas Turner at 17, Jared Verse at 19, Chop Robinson at 21. And then Chop, I can't really figure out because he looked really good as a rookie, and for whatever reason,
gone this year.
Just this black hole of awful on the Dolphins defense. Why are Chop Robinson, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, why are the players, even Kenneth Grant, who should be a better player, why are the players who should be good and have played good football previously in their career not playing well over there right now? It's a tough one figuring out what's going on with Chop Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, that's where is he gone is the big question. based off, because he looked really good last year. You could argue he was the second best edge rusher of that group. And he was a guy where I was always wondering during the draft process, it was talked about as a big three, right? Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, Latu, and then people were like, and yeah, maybe Chop Robinson at the bottom of the first round, top of the second. I always wondered, because of how productive he was as a pass rusher, why is he not being talked about more closer to that group as a big four, maybe, even if he's 4 of 4. And year one, I mean, he was really productive as a pass rusher for Miami. And then this year, it's not been there at all. None of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the curious things. Like when a guy is, progression's not always linear. All these different statements, and we're 5 weeks in, right? It's not that far in. But a guy that's that, is that promising as a pass rusher in year one, and it's just not there in year two.
He only had 6 sacks or whatever it is, but his pass rush win rate, or his pressure rate rather, last year was 17%, which is the highest that Odafe Oweh has had in a single season. Yeah. So, like, his rookie year was as good as the best season we've seen from Odafe Oweh for a similarly freaky, twitched up, situational, pass rush specialist.
Yeah, so just to sum up other parts of the first round here, I think defensive line-wise, Verse has been a star. I think there's a legitimate debate between Jared Verse and then Quinyon Mitchell being the best defensive player in this draft, cornerback out of from the Eagles. That's still the case. Mm-hmm. But defensive line-wise, you're starting to see Latu. You're starting to see Byron Murphy really come good. Chop Robinson, we'll keep an eye on, see what happened there. And then into the late first round, Nate Wiggins done a pretty nice job for the Ravens. Still want to see more from Darius Robinson, the second Cardinals first-round pick out of Missouri. Anything else from this draft class?
Well, just in terms of best players on the defensive side, I think the other two names you would throw in there would be Cooper DeJean in the second round to the Eagles, and then Edgerrin Cooper to Green Bay, who looks like he might become, the best or one of the best linebackers in the NFL going forward.
Yeah, second round, I think there's a lot of pretty dependable players. Devondre Sweat, even though he's been hurt, he's looked like a good player. Braden Fisk for the Rams, Kamari Lassiter for the Texans, Jackson Powers-Johnson for the Raiders, whether he's playing guard or center, Mike Sanderstill, Zach Frazier. So you've got some good players. That's where you start to see the divergence, right? Like A.D. Mitchell and Zach Frazier were picked, two picks apart or next to each other. It's like Frazier's become this very dependable center for the Steelers. A.D. Mitchell's now, losing snaps and not as dependable at receiver.
I think there were probably a lot of very good players that got pushed down this draft because of just the way it unfolded. Like all these players on offense to begin with, quarterbacks taking up 6 of the first 12 picks, the wide receiver run, et cetera. Suddenly you start finding good random players at different positions end up in the middle of the second round or whatever, just because of the way the draft's unfolded.
Third round players that have become productive. You've got Dominic Pooney at 86 overall.
One of Renner's favorites.
Goncalves, I was wondering about that pick at the time for the Colts. He got a lot of late hype in the draft. He's become a decent pass-protecting guard.
Cooper Beebe,
when you steal a starting center in the third round.
Love that pick.
Like the Cowboys did. And then Peyton Wilson's had his ups and downs as a Steelers linebacker, but he's shown a lot of flashes. Cameron Kitchens played a lot of football for the Rams, picked 99 overall. And then Luke McCaffrey.
It's the second most damning indictment you've had of a guy today. Just played a lot of football.
He's been okay at safety.
Yeah. Jalex Hunt, that was a sort of surprising pick, I think, at the time. Houston Christian, the freaky athlete, freaky prototypical NFL size, speed, weight thing, but played at a really, really low level. The Eagles take him at the bottom of the third round, and he ends up unseating Bryce Huff as that situational pass rusher there, and has now become basically a starter.
It's a good third round. It's a good third rounder. It was a fascinating draft class. You had all the offensive players at the top. I think a lot of good defensive players did end up dropping. The fourth round saw our guy Troy Franklin go, and I think he's going to become a very good fourth rounder. I think Theo Johnson in the fourth round at tight end for the Giants. Cedric Gray's making a lot of plays in the run game for Tennessee as a fourth round pick. The Rabbit went in the fourth round. If he's not fumbling interceptions, he's been pretty productive this year for Arizona. Dadrian Taylor-Demerson.
A.J. Barner's been looking very good for Seattle, the tight end out of Michigan.
He has. Tanner Bortolini, playing center.
Bucky
for the
Irving.
Colts as a 4th rounder. Bucky Irving was probably the best 4th rounder.
Yes.
And looks like an absolute steal.
Mm-hmm.
And he went 1 pick in front of Canada, Giovanni Manu, as developmental tackle for the Lions. TJ Tampa starting now for the Ravens as a late 4th round pick, and then Braylon Allen's looked good as a 4th round running back for the Jets. Before
Very
he
good,
got hurt.
Certainly, he's looked so much more dynamic than I thought he did in college.
And I would say Allen, Brian Thomas Jr., those are 2 of the players we were a little bit lower on that have overall come good coming out of this draft class. Previewing it. Anything else?
Well, 5th round, I would mention Tarheeb Steele as another guy that's been incredibly good relative to expectations. The Chargers look like they absolutely stole him at the top of the 5th round. He's been very, very good.
Oh, I thought you were going to go through more 5th round.
I was hoping you would fill the dead time when I was scrolling through the names.
Joe Milton.
But it's okay. It's fine.
I've jumped to the 6th round. I'm just going through names. Joe Milton still looks like the best 6th rounder in history.
Okay.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
Tyler Davis, defensive tackle for the Rams, has been a good part of their rotation.
We mentioned this before, the Giants draft class generally, but Drew Phillips has looked really good. He was in the 4th or the 3rd round. Tyrone Tracy at the bottom of the 5th for them has been very good, albeit injured now, and opening the door to Cam Scatterbu. But the Giants, basically their entire draft was really good.
And while we're here, 7th round, Vikings defensive tackle Levi Drake Rodriguez out of Texas A&M Commerce he's been pretty good.
Yeah,
he's stepped good enough that they could trade Harrison Phillips. Now I know that the run defense hasn't been great, and he's a part of that. And Jalen Redmond, they're a part of that, but they've been pretty disruptive up front, and getting into the starting lineup in year 2 for a small school guy is pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. 6th round, Ryan Flournoy has started to make plays now that he's got opportunities in Dallas. That looks like another potentially good one.
Fun draft class, man.
It has, yeah.
Good draft class. 1st round's interesting because there's so many players I think that looked, or there's a chunk of players who either were good or promising as rookies who through 5 weeks haven't looked as good. Brian Thomas Jr., Chop Robinson, some of these guys we've talked about, the offensive tackles. So just something to keep an eye on. But I think if those guys get back on track, it looks like a loaded 1st round. There's not a lot of misses in there as far as the 1st round goes because of all the quarterbacks where I think most teams are at least going to be happy with who they got, where they got them.
Yeah.
Including Bo Nix and Michael Penix.
Right.
And J.J. McCarthy. We'll see what happens with McCarthy, but that's it's who they had at that time.
Yeah, there's very few people there that would be like this. We're already massively concerned by this player heading forward. I mean, you would say the Vikings are definitely disappointed in Dallas Turner relative to potential expectations, but also because they traded up to get him. Remember, that was part of their draft that year. Is they get the J.J. McCarthy thing, and then they get, I don't want to say greedy, but they decide to have their cake and eat it as well, and they go get Dallas Turner. The last time a team did that, the Houston Texans with the Will Anderson, C.J. Stroud dynamic, it worked out great for them. This has not worked out the same yet for Minnesota in both parts.
It was tough to get Turner on the field last year behind Van Ginkel and Grenard.
And he had a breakout the other day. He had a really good game, but so far he's made much impact whatsoever.
He's had more opportunities this year than last year, for sure.
And still, it's not like he's been on the field this year and immediately you're like, oh, he just didn't have the opportunities last year. He was always ready to cook. He still has not exactly looked, ready to dominate.
And then I would like to apologize.
Oh.
For lying to the people.
Okay.
And you've warned me about these situations before. Austin Gale couldn't make it today.
I've told you. I've literally warned you about this.
You wanted to tease it. Hey, we got a big special guest. Mm-hmm. We'll see. We're still talking to his people, and I just blurted out. It's Austin Gale.
You're like, no,
and I'm confident.
Let's tell people who it is. And I'm like, you gotta. It's tempting fate, and fate was tempted, and fate mocked us.
Bill Simmons stepped in and said, no, he's not going on that show.
The bureaucrats at the Ringer.
Yeah.
They didn't even block it. They just didn't. They blocked it. It was like what do they call that thing? The pocket veto or whatever. That they just stuck it in a drawer somewhere. Didn't even answer it.
Stuck in the inbox.
Right.
The request.
They're just like, we're not even going to get back to him.
So God willing, we'll do it next week if they could get back to him.
So we have officially bumped Austin Gale to next Wednesday, and hopefully the people at the Ringer will open the drawer by then and give him an answer.
We'll just keep teasing it until he actually shows up for the numbers. People keep showing up for Austin Gale,
and he'll never arrive. It'll be like the new Bobby Wagner.
The new Bobby Wagner. Oh, man.
You never know when Austin Gale's going to show up in the show. Maybe sometimes, maybe never.
And then I would love to, with the Amazon Prime people coming to town next week. I'd love to get some of them on the show. Sherm, Fitz, Witt. We'll see. We'll see what we can get. Al.
Tony.
Tony.
He's the one that's always forgotten about.
We have no relationship with Tony.
No, but he's one of the Amazon Prime people.
Carissa Thompson, Kirk Herbstreit.
Herbie. Yeah.
Kaylee.
Ask him what the hell the
whole
deal
crew
is with his giant chain. Or, what is not even a chain.
I bet we could get Kirk
bracelet?
What do you call we could get Kirk on the show.
You think?
I wonder if he's still living. I don't know if he's still living in Cincinnati now that his kid's in college. So he was living in here. He was living here for a couple of years while his kid was going over to St. X playing QB. Everybody's asking us to have Bert Breer on the show here. He doesn't come to town. He doesn't travel with them.
No. There's no way Bert would.
Plus, we know Bert. Bert would be disgusted.
Right.
With the
professionalism.
Elevator up to our studio. He would be disgusted by the whole set.
We don't have coffee for him or anything.
We've worked with Bert many times.
He'd be upset.
Yeah, it'd be great. All right. Is that it for us today?
I think so.
Tell everybody about First off, we need more subscribers. They tell us we're just not enough people subscribing relative to listeners and watchers, viewers. It's just not even. It's like a 40%. Like, what the heck, man?
We want that silver play button that we have previously earned before, but is no longer in our possession.
We need the button.
We want our own silver play button again. Now, apparently, it's small now. It's been shrinkflated, like Snickers and stuff, which is disappointing. But still, ours is currently sitting in somebody else's studio, and we want our own
for
back.
Everybody.
We've already earned one, and we want it back.
So,
anyway, in order to do that, we need to get to 100,000 subscribers. So we got some work to do.
The whole show's free, but there's bonus stuff for our members.
Yes.
Including your name on the wall if you're an insider. And we do have to schedule our next watch-along. We need to have our member-only watch-along for a Thursday night. Maybe next week. We'll take a look. What's the schedule look like next week?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on members? That was me setting you up to tell people about it.
Oh, look, people have heard it plenty of times before. We got 3 tiers. We got our super fans. You get yourself a merchandise discount. You get yourself access to those live watch-alongs and members-only posts. The middle tier is where you get your name up on the wall over there, and some other perks as well. And then obviously we talked about our billionaire Howard Hughes tier, where you can name the studio basically whatever you like.
How could I forget? Next week, I've been talking about it for weeks. Next week is here in Cincinnati, Steelers-Bengals. So I think for members, we should do something where we just post up outside the stadium and just try to record live outside until we
live watch along just from a deck chair sitting outside the stadium.
Or members only can watch us try to walk in and just get on the spot credentialed from PJ or something.
PJ, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be the members only post. We
BTS the Bengals game.
Video the phone call, on speakerphone,
that
dialing
into
PJ with me trying to pitch that I am Associated Press and I would like a credential for the game.
I think we should have
in 3 hours.
I would say part of the billionaire tier would be allowing them to call PJ on our behalf.
I don't think that's a great idea.
Maybe not. That might not work. 100K by March 2026, reasonable goal.
Maybe Justin Pugh could get us in as a former NFL player. Do they get special dispensation?
Yeah, we have so many potential guests. Let's not screw this up. Let's not screw this up for next week. So anyway, join the membership tiers. A lot of fun. You can see there's a little join button over on YouTube. All right. That it for us today?
Yep.
Great show. Wednesday update. Don't forget tomorrow, Week 6 NFL preview. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. More Check the Mic.